Marvel. God level eating. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, Activating the Devouring System. Johnny felt like a tragedy. Johnny's carefree life was ended by a sudden missile. This was a terrorist attack. The missile exploded right next to the unlucky Johnny, and his body was shattered. He was deader than dead. When Johnny woke up, he was already in a dark and narrow dungeon. Why? Where am I? Johnny was at a loss. He couldn't understand. He was still immersed in his happy fat house life in the last second, watching the action movies of Teacher Kang and Teacher Bo. Unexpectedly, after the explosion and severe pain, Johnny's eyes went black. When he woke up again, he was already in this ghost place. Travel through time? No way. Johnny was confused. And, even if it's travel through time, you should at least tell me what the hell is this place? Just when Johnny couldn't figure out the situation, a sound of footsteps sounded, which caught Johnny's attention. Several guards wearing golden armor and holding spears and shields quickly walked past the door of Johnny's cell. Fuck, armor and spear? Where the hell did I travel to? Seeing the way these guards were dressed, Johnny was even more confused and wanted to find out where he had traveled to. Hey, guards, I want to see a lawyer. Johnny got up and rushed to the door of the dungeon. He slammed the metal bars of the prison and shouted at the two guards. This action attracted the attention of the two guards who just passed by. However, Johnny found that this might not be a wise behavior, because of the way the two guards looked at him. Huh? I remember that the one imprisoned here was not a damn fire creature. How did it become a human? When they saw Johnny, the two soldiers were a little surprised. One soldier asked in confusion about Johnny. The two soldiers were burly and stood at the door of Johnny's cell, almost blocking all of Johnny's sight. Excuse me, can you tell me where this is? Faced with the aggressive momentum of the two soldiers, Johnny immediately gave in. This is the great god's domain, Asgard. Human, tell me, how did you sneak in? A soldier's eyes were sharp, and there was a faint pressure on his body. He shouted at Johnny. Under the imposing pressure of the soldier, Johnny only felt his legs weaken, but the soldier's words also shocked Johnny. God's domain, Asgard? Isn't that the ruler of the 9 realms in the Marvel world? The country where Odin, the father of the gods, and Thor, the god of thunder, exist? Sneak in? I didn't sneak in, I was just staying at home. Suddenly, my eyes went black, and then I came here. I didn't commit any crime. Johnny wanted to explain, but when he heard his words, the two guards showed vigilance on their faces. The humans in Midgard are extremely far away from the god's domain. You said you came here suddenly. The guards obviously didn't believe Johnny's words. I think he is the intruder. Odin is now leading his army to conquer and is not in the god's domain. This person must have a conspiracy to sneak in. Let's take him down first. The spear in the hand of a guard flashed with strong energy fluctuations, and the golden energy at the tip of the spear shot out and fell on Johnny, who had no power to resist. Fuck. Under the severe pain, Johnny only had time to curse in anger in his heart, and then his eyes went black again, his body twitched, and he fell straight to the ground, and soon there was no sound. Yet, he seems to be dead. Seeing Johnny fall to the ground under an attack and no longer have a breath, the guard who launched the attack just now spoke uncertainly. It's best if he's dead. Who cares about the lives of the prisoners in this prison? Whether it's an intruder or not, we must eliminate hidden dangers. It's better to kill the wrong person than to let him go. Otherwise, if there is any trouble, we can't afford it. A guard stabbed Johnny with a spear in his hand several times, and the sharp spear tip easily pierced Johnny's body. If Johnny was still conscious at this time, he would definitely curse. This Asgardian is so unreasonable, isn't he? It seems that he is really dead. Don't worry about it. When the shift changes, have someone drag the body out. The wild beasts in the forest will naturally clean it up. The guard muttered, and the two figures left immediately. The death of a prisoner just saved space in the god's domain dungeon for them. You know, it takes a lot of budget to hold these prisoners, build a solid prison, and provide food and drink. However, what the two guards didn't know was that shortly after they left, Johnny, who had no breath in the prison, had a strange change. A ball of dark energy diffused from the depths of Johnny's body and wrapped Johnny's body. Under this strange dark energy, the wound on Johnny's body that was stabbed by the guard's spear healed quickly, and soon it was as smooth as new, without any trace. Ding. System binding. Checking the physical condition. The host's life is about to die, and it is being resurrected. The swallowing system is bound. As Johnny's physical injuries recovered, his consciousness gradually recovered, and a strange electronic sound rang in his mind. Is this a golden finger? Johnny's consciousness heard the strange electronic sound, and his mind couldn't help but think, it seems that I have traveled to the Marvel world, and inexplicably got a golden finger called the swallowing system? Just as Johnny was thinking about this, a progress bar appeared in front of his eyes. Resurrection progress, 10%, 15%, 20%. Is it really resurrecting? Great. Being alive is better than anything else. Calculating according to the host's physical condition. Calculation is completed. The host can currently carry one summoned creature. The type of summoned creature, undead ghost. As the system sounded, Johnny's mind quickly filled with a lot of information. All of this information directly appeared in his mind, allowing him to quickly understand the content. The information mainly introduced the system. Awesome. This was Johnny's only thought. The devouring system is a powerful auxiliary system that can summon undead creatures of different numbers and strengths to fight for the host according to the host's strength level. These summoned creatures have different strengths, but they all have one characteristic: devouring. After devouring, the host's strength can be enhanced. At the same time, the ability can be extracted from the devoured and transferred to the host. In addition to the ability to devour, the undead ghost also has the unique ability of its race. Its body walks in the shadows all year round, and it is difficult for ordinary people to capture it with their naked eyes. Only when they are attacked can they be seen. Wait, after I am resurrected, I will definitely kill the guy who killed me. Since you're unreasonable, don't blame me for being unreasonable. While excited and angry, Johnny's heart was filled with murderous intent. Chapter 2, Undead Ghosts. Resurrection progress 100%. On the cold ground, Johnny's eyes suddenly opened, and there was a flash of violence and murderous intent in his eyes. Throw my body in the wilderness and let the wild beasts dismember me, then I'll dismember you too first. Johnny's mind moved, and a subtle rustling sound was heard. From his body, a dark energy surged out, like a dark mist. In a blink of an eye, the dark mist had turned into a strange figure. This figure was in human form, like a mummy, dry and bloodless, and the whole body was shrouded in a decayed energy, but the arms were much longer than those of ordinary people, and the nails were protruding and extremely sharp. This figure was the undead ghost summoned by Johnny. At your command. The undead ghost did not speak, and the voice was clearly transmitted to Johnny's mind through some kind of connection between him and Johnny. At the same time as the voice sounded, the ghost leaned forward slightly and saluted Johnny. Johnny did not feel uncomfortable with this undead ghost that made ordinary people feel nervous. On the contrary, he could feel absolute obedience and awe from the breath emitted by the ghost. The two guards in the dungeon returned after a round of inspection, and their footsteps were getting closer and closer to the dungeon where Yifeng was. Kill those two guys. Johnny only felt his heartbeat speed up a little, but he was not very afraid. He gave the ghost an order in his mind. Yes, the undead ghost received the order, raised his arm, and slashed at the prison door made of special metal in front of him. The crisp sound of metal clashing rang out softly. The prison door that the god's domain spent a lot of money on to imprison criminals was broken into several sections under the ghost's claws, and the fracture was smooth and flat. Something's going on. Hearing this subtle voice, the two guards who were chatting suddenly became nervous. However, it was too late. Swish. Blood splattered, and 5 hideous wounds suddenly appeared on the guard's body, as if they were scratched by the claws of a beast. Blood splattered, and he died on the spot. What happened? Another guard was horrified when he saw his partner die inexplicably. Soon, he saw a humanoid thing in front of him that was skin and bones, like a demon. This is the characteristic of the undead ghost. In stealth mode, it can only be seen by the other party when it launches an attack. What are you? The guard opened his eyes wide, showing a horrified expression. Before he could scream, the undead ghost immediately used a claw to kill the guard on the spot. The two bodies that had already lost their breath fell to the ground, and blood gushed out from the horrible wounds. For a time, the surroundings were shrouded in a strong smell of blood. "I have achieved your instructions. Do you have any other instructions?" The undead killed two guards in one round without any pressure. Looking at the bodies of the two guards on the ground, Yifeng heard the ghost's voice in his mind. "You did a good job. Next, you have to continue killing the guards outside. At least you have to escape first." Johnny was a little uncomfortable with this strong smell of blood. Although he did not kill the two guards himself, he also ordered the undead ghost to kill them. Of course, Johnny did not regret killing these two people. He would not show any mercy to those who wanted to kill him. "Ghost, you go first." "Eh? What are you doing?" Qiaowen was about to command the ghost to go out and kill all the guards outside. At this time, the ghost suddenly pounced on the two corpses, opened its big mouth with dry flesh, as if the whole head was about to split, revealing sharp fangs, and began to bite the two guards' bodies fiercely. Seeing the bloody scene of the undead ghost devouring the bodies of the two guards, Johnny felt his stomach rolling a little, and had a desire to vomit. He quickly turned his head away and dared not look directly. "Food. Delicious. All. My food." The voice of the undead ghost rang in Yifeng's mind as he devoured the bodies of the two guards. Blood splattered everywhere, and all the organs in the bodies, white, yellow, and red, were exposed. Johnny only took a look and quickly turned his head away. The speed at which the undead ghost devoured the bodies was much faster than Johnny had imagined. By the time Johnny began to adapt to the strong smell of blood, the bodies of the two guards had disappeared, leaving only a pale skeleton with some residual flesh and blood. "I feel as if there is a heat flow in my body." At this time, Johnny found that he had a burst of heat in his body, and then he clenched his fists and found that his muscles became condensed and his strength was much stronger than before. "Devour." Johnny quickly realized that this was the feedback mentioned by the summoning devouring system. Devouring the flesh and blood of the enemy can enhance the power of both the host and the undead creature at the same time. Moreover, Johnny felt that his body was not only stronger, but also had an inexplicable energy brewing in his body. However, this energy was so tiny that Johnny could not use it for the time being. What kind of energy is this? Johnny carefully sensed his body, trying to figure out the strange energy in his body. The one who was just killed by the ghost was the guard of Asgard, the god's realm, divine power. Thinking of this, Johnny's breathing became much heavier. Divine power is a power that only Asgardians who call themselves gods can possess, just like the thunder power in Thor's body and Odin's judgment power, which are all manifestations of divine power. Different Asgardians can express divine power in different forms, but in the final analysis, the essence of these energies is the same. It's a pity that there is too little. Johnny tried to drive the trace of divine power in his body, and the divine power emitted a trace of fluctuations under his drive. After feeling this fluctuation, Johnny's eyes lit up. He clenched his palms and punched the wall casually. In the past, Johnny would definitely feel pain in his hand bones, but now, the pain is only a little bit, and a faint fist mark actually appeared on the wall. I've really become stronger. A tiny bit of divine power has made me so much stronger. If I can devour more gods. Thinking of this, Johnny's heart surged. If it is true that you can make yourself and your summons stronger by devouring, as long as there is enough accumulation, the power you can have is more than terrifying. Just now I was worried that there were too many guards in the dungeon and I couldn't solve it, but now, I hope that more of you will come. Johnny's eyes showed a hint of coldness. After he inexplicably traveled through time and appeared here, the people of the god realm killed him without any reason, and didn't even give him a chance to defend himself. Then let's speak with strength. Unconsciously, Johnny's mentality has changed drastically. Johnny's soul, which had been bound by rules and morals for a long time, has completed its transformation after traveling to this chaotic world where only strength speaks. Chapter 3 Kill your whole family. Ghost, do you want to enjoy the same delicacy as before? Johnny asked through the connection with the summoned creature with a gleam in his eyes. I want to. The ghost's voice sounded in Johnny's mind. standing respectfully in front of Johnny with a desire. "Hey, you've become stronger too?" In Johnny's perception, the momentum of the undead ghost in front of him was stronger than when he was just summoned. It seems that in the process of devouring, not only his strength has been improved, but also the strength of the summoned creature will be improved. "Go through this corridor, open that door, and kill all the guards you see. Be quick, don't leave any." Johnny's voice was cold. "As you command." "Delicious. Here I come." The ghost's body was like a phantom, moving extremely fast towards the end of the corridor. The door at the end of the corridor was heavy, and the whole body was cast with some kind of hard metal. Behind this door, there were still many guards. According to the chat between the two guards who were just devoured by the ghost, Johnny heard that they should change shifts soon, if he couldn't deal with all the guards before the shift change. Johnny's current strength would not be very sure when there were more people. The iron chain wrapped around the metal door, under the sharp grasp of the ghost, brought a first-class spark, and then was directly torn apart, and fell to the ground with a clang. At this time, there were two guards with guns guarding the door. The door was suddenly opened, and the two immediately looked inside the door subconsciously. What happened? Seeing the scene behind the door, both of them showed a look of horror in their eyes. On the corridor, only Johnny was still standing, looking at the two of them with a cold look. The two corpses under their feet had already turned into white bones, with only a few pieces of flesh and blood remaining on the eerie bones. "What on earth happened?" Exclamation mark. The two horrified guards reacted quickly, and the energy of the spears in their hands surged, and they were about to attack the sneering Johnny, ready to kill him on the spot. But when they raised their spears and had no time to launch, Johnny showed a sneer on his face. The body of the undead ghost suddenly appeared in front of the two people. Its invisible claws like sickles tore the heads of the two people fiercely, killing them on the spot, and blood and brains splattered all over the ground. Two short screams stopped as the two bodies fell. The undead ghost did not hesitate. The desire to devour drove it to immediately open its big mouth full of fangs and began to devour. Johnny has gradually adapted to the ghost's devouring. He picked up the shield and spear dropped by the guard in front of him. Johnny's mind suddenly came up with many ways to use these two cold weapons. The shield is made of metal minerals unique to the god's domain, which can well resist physical attacks and energy shocks, while the spear has two different attack methods. It can be used as a cold weapon, or it can be regarded as a shotgun, firing energy shocks. It is called a shotgun because it takes a certain amount of time to charge this weapon for long-range attacks. Among weapons, it has a certain amount of charge itself, similar to the bullets of firearms. During the battle, a few attacks will consume all the energy in it. At this time, it is the divine power that is consumed, the divine power that only Asgardians have. Haha, it seems that this weapon is exclusive to the warriors of the god realm. The creatures of other worlds do not have divine power. Even if they get it, it is just a harder weapon. However, the Asgardians probably never thought that I also have divine power. Holding the two weapons tightly, Johnny sneered in his heart. What emerged in his mind was not only the use of the two weapons, but also a lot of shield and spear combined fighting methods. As long as Johnny moved his mind, these things had already emerged clearly in his brain and were easily mastered by him. Is this another benefit of swallowing, the ability to control the enemy? Johnny was a little surprised by the powerful swallowing ability. The ghost swallowed very quickly. In a blink of an eye, it ate the two guards until only a skeleton was left. This feeling of heat again. My strength has increased again. Johnny could clearly feel that his strength had increased. He was more certain that he would benefit from Zhao Hai's swallowing of these corpses. I'm done, Master. I'm done. After eating the two, the ghost returned to Johnny, revealing an emotion that he was still not satisfied. Come on, I'll take you to have a good meal. Johnny led the undead ghost through the corridor of the prison. The prison here is different from the future. It is of a more classical style. Even the dungeons are built magnificently, and are no less than the high-end hotels Johnny had seen before he crossed over. The Asgardians are really corrupt. Even the dungeons where prisoners are held are built so luxuriously. Johnny secretly complained as he walked through the corridors carefully. There were not many guards in this huge dungeon of the gods. Johnny followed the ghost and did not meet any for a long time. Instead, The prisoners who were suffering in the cages on both sides saw Johnny, and they rushed over one after another, grabbing the iron bars as if they had seen a sweet spring in the desert. "You are not from the gods' domain, you are a prisoner. How did you escape? You are also a prisoner, right? Help us, as long as you can let us out. We are willing to follow you." "Hey, stop it, you bastard, let me out quickly. If you dare to disobey me, be careful that I will kill your whole family when I get out." One by one, some prisoners begged, some were eager, and some threatened fiercely. Johnny didn't want to pay attention to them at first, but after hearing the words "kill your whole family," Johnny's eyes changed. Johnny stopped and then walked to the man with an expressionless face. "You just said that, didn't you?" Johnny said coldly. "Do you know how powerful I am? Let me tell you, I have killed more people than you have ever seen. Let me out quickly, otherwise I will kill you." The man continued to shout. "Where are the others? Are they all your accomplices?" Johnny looked at the others. The other prisoners in the prison heard that Johnny seemed to be a little loose, and thought that this kind of coercion was very effective, just like this man. So they rushed up one by one, with stern faces, and began to threaten Johnny fiercely. "Ghost, your delicious food is here. Kill all these people, don't leave any of them." Johnny took a step back, looked at the smaller prisoners in the cell, and spoke indifferently. "Boy, is there something wrong with your brain? Who are you talking to? Hurry up and let us out." The prisoners heard it, not knowing why, and continued to threaten Johnny fiercely. "Yes, master." I saw He walked to the iron railings, grabbed the two iron railings with his two palm leaf fan-like claws, and then suddenly exerted force. Creak, the iron railings were bent by it. The prisoners were even more shocked by the sudden change of the iron railings. They didn't do anything, so why did the iron railings suddenly bend by themselves? But they didn't think too much about it. The iron bars were now bent, revealing a large gap, which was enough for them to leave the prison. Chapter 4, Massacre. All of a sudden, all the prisoners were excited. However, just as the happy smiles on their faces rose, blood suddenly splashed up, and a head rolled to the ground. "What happened?" "Blood. There is blood." "Ah, help me. My abdomen was pierced by something. Help me." "What is this?" "Arm. Let go of my arm." "Ah." Instantly, shrill howls came from the entire prison. These prisoners were either pierced in the abdomen by something sharp, or their arms were forcibly pulled off. What's worse, their heads were torn out of their necks, or cut off from their waists by sharp blades, and they were scared to death in fear and blood. The ghost killing did not last too long. In less than a minute, more than a dozen people in the prison were all killed on the spot. Each death was more miserable than the other. It was completely a purgatory on earth. More than 10 people were killed by the ghost. In the small prison, the smell of blood became so strong that it made people want to vomit. Johnny stood at the door of the cell, his face slightly pale, trying to resist the discomfort. He knew that if he wanted to survive well in the Marvel world where fists were the only thing to do, he had to speak with his fists. As time passed, all the prisoners in the prison were devoured by the ghost. Johnny's body was strengthened again. With the increase in strength, Johnny felt that he had gradually begun to adapt to this bloody and terrifying scene. "Humphrey, this unknown guy deserves death." Taking a deep breath, Johnny dispelled the fear of the bloody scene in his heart. What did that young man do to them? I saw the head. The head is on the ground. Who can tell me what is killing people? Seeing this, the prisoners in other prisons were so scared that they almost fell to the ground, and everyone panicked uncontrollably. "Who is making trouble? How dare you make such a loud noise? Are you looking for death? Damn, where are all of the people on duty? I promise you will be punished by the higher-ups if you don't care about people making trouble." At this time, the guards who were changing shifts finally arrived. Their footsteps were particularly loud, coming from far away and approaching. It was obvious that they had heard the commotion here and rushed over here quickly. "Are you finally here?" "Unfortunately, it's a bit too late." Johnny felt the strong heat in his body, clenched the spear in his hand, and pointed it at the corner. "Ghost, kill them all." Ghost heard Johnny's words, closed his mouth again, and got out of the prison and started to rush towards the direction where the jailer was coming. As soon as he entered the corner, 5 guards were running over. They didn't see Hela in front of them at all. They had an impatient expression on their faces, ready to vent their anger on those prisoners who didn't know what they were doing and dared to make trouble. Kill! The ghost stomped his feet on the ground, and his figure quickly rushed out. A pair of sickle-like claws pierced the abdomens of the 2 jailers and threw them to the ground. "What's wrong with you? What happened?" Seeing this, the other jailers turned their heads quickly, and they saw that the 2 companions lying on the ground were constantly being attacked, with hideous wounds emerging one after another, and blood spurting out crazily. The characteristics of the undead ghost are that usually only when it is attacked can the opponent see its true appearance. The other jailers widened their eyes, with a look of fear on their faces. There was nothing in front of them, but why did the 2 companions seem to be constantly attacked by something? Soon, the horrified guards saw the murderer who killed many of their companions. At this time, the ghost turned his head suddenly, and his big mouth was still open. There were traces of flesh and blood remaining between the sharp fangs, which made people palpitate. The master said, "To kill you," without leaving any alive. Without giving the other jailers time to react, Hela pounced on them, opened his sickle-like claws, and ruthlessly tore them to pieces. When the last guard saw the true face of the murderer, his doom had already come. "No, don't get close to me, don't kill me." The guard's facial features were distorted, and he fell to the ground, desperately retreating. I don't know if he wanted to escape or just release the fear in his heart. Bang! The guard's head exploded like a broken watermelon under the energy fluctuations, and red and white were all splattered on the ground. Not only did I absorb their power, but even some of their experience in using spears was passed on to me after being swallowed by the ghost. Johnny slowly put down the spear in his hand. "Ghost, it's time for dinner. Don't be polite." Johnny's voice was not fluctuating at all. The few guards who came over all became the ghost's delicacies. The ghost opened his ferocious mouth and gnawed their flesh and blood fiercely. The scene was once extremely bloody. Johnny also felt that as the ghost continued to devour, the heat in his body continued, and power was constantly being transported into his body, making him stronger and stronger. Power. These surging powers all come from their flesh and blood. No need to spend a long time, no need to shed blood and sweat to practice. As long as I devour them, my power will increase quickly. Ghost, kill everyone in the prison. Devour them all for me, and turn them into my power, Johnny said coldly. Just by devouring a few guards, his power is already much stronger than before. If he devours all the God's realm prisoners who already have a certain strength, his power will become stronger than ever before. Most of these God's realm prisoners are prisoners of war captured by the God's realm in various battles, and a small number are prisoners of the God's realm itself. No one has no blood on their hands. In this world where right and wrong are not distinguished, Johnny's mentality has completely changed. In his eyes, these people are all supplies to enhance his strength. Delicious. Kill them all. Johnny gave the order, and the ghost rushed out immediately, picked a cell at random, bent the iron bars with his hands, and rushed in to kill. Not only have I become stronger, but the ghost's strength has also become much stronger. Through some details, Johnny found that it was not only himself who had increased his strength, but the ghost's strength was also increasing rapidly. However, after the ghost devoured the opponent's flesh and blood, it only increased its own strength and ability, and could not gain other abilities. Johnny was different. He already had a lot of extra abilities in his body. The most notable ones were ice attribute attacks and fire attribute attacks. The energy of the ice attribute came from Jotunheim, where the frost giants lived, and the energy of the fire attribute came from the world of fire. It seems that the death of these prisoners is even more necessary. Devouring these guys can not only make his own strength stronger, but also make the ghost stronger. At that time, Johnny will be more confident in facing any enemy. Ah, where are those damn jailers? They always like to show up when we don't need them, but now they are dead when we need them. Hurry up and save me. There is a black shadow killing me. Someone come and save me. Help me. Let me out. I don't want to die. Let me out. Every time the ghost enters a prison, it will inevitably cause a commotion, and the shrill screams are endless. echoing in the entire God's Domain dungeon. The prisoners in other cells heard it and felt their hair stand on end. They had no idea what was going on, they only felt that a darkness was gradually enveloping them, and a sense of fear was about to swallow their hearts. At the same time, the guards who heard the noise came one after another, but the ghost no longer had to deal with these. "It's time to test my strength." Johnny's eyes showed a cruel look. Chapter 5, Break Out of the Dungeon. The killing in the dungeon has come to an end. The guards who were supposed to change shifts and leave did not show up, which has attracted the attention of those outside the dungeon. Soon, a large number of God's Realm warriors swarmed into the dungeon. "Huh? So many of you? Didn't Odin say he was going to fight with the God's Realm army?" Johnny slowly opened his eyes, and his aura was completely radiating because of the surge in strength. "Ghost, follow me and kill." Johnny's body was trembling slightly with excitement because of the upcoming battle, and he gave an order to the ghost. With a sudden kick of his feet, Johnny's body strength completely burst out, and he turned into a phantom and rushed to the end of the dungeon. The ghost followed closely behind. His body was as light as a feather, but his speed was not even half a second slower than Johnny. The team that found something unusual and entered the dungeon saw several bodies with only skeletons left at the door of the dungeon. The armor scattered around the bodies was obviously the standard of the dungeon guards, and they became cautious. "A powerful prisoner may have escaped from the dungeon. Everyone be careful. Shoot immediately if you see anything unusual." Standing at the front of the team, a leader who looked like a captain issued an order, and energy condensed in the spears in everyone's hands. Bang! Before everyone could react, Johnny's figure had already rushed out from the corner of the dungeon. A beam of energy shot out from the spear in his hand, and directly shot a warrior from the God Realm who had no time to dodge in the head. "Attack!" Seeing this, everyone was stunned. With an order, intensive attacks poured towards Johnny. Facing a wave of shooting from all the warriors of the God Realm, Johnny felt a fatal threat. Even though the ghost devoured a large number of opponents and fed back a huge amount of power, allowing him to be reborn, the power of the God Realm's technological weapon combined with magic should not be underestimated. "Ghost!" Johnny roared, and the ghost who was originally following Johnny immediately understood, moved his body, and blocked Johnny. With the ghost blocking the way, a large wave of attacks fell on the ghost, which immediately made the ghost full of holes. After the head was attacked and shattered, the ghost's body directly turned into dark energy and dissipated. Although the ghost was destroyed by a wave of attacks, it also successfully blocked most of the attacks. The Aegis shield in Johnny's hand became the second line of defense, protecting the vital parts of the body, the head and torso. Taking this opportunity, Johnny's figure rushed quickly towards the crowd who did not have time to charge and launch a second round of attacks. In the eyes of the attacking God's Realm warriors, their wave of concentrated shooting seemed to hit an invisible wall. A large number of attacks disappeared, and there was little left on Johnny. At the moment when everyone was surprised, Johnny had already rushed into the crowd, and the spear in his hand suddenly pierced out, piercing through the air, piercing the throat of a God's Realm warrior, bringing up a burst of hot blood. Bang! Johnny swept the shield in his other hand and landed on the chest of a God Realm warrior. A crisp bone fracture and scream sounded, and the body of the God Realm warrior was thrown directly into the air, completely interrupting the attacks of the people behind him. Johnny's power at this time was obtained by the ghost who had devoured countless prisoners and jailers. It was no longer what it used to be. After Johnny fell into the crowd, the scene was completely in chaos. Although the spear could launch energy attacks, at such a close distance, no one dared to attack randomly for fear of hurting their own people. This was also Johnny's advantage in taking the initiative. He was alone, and rushing into the battle circle would completely disrupt the opponent's formation. Johnny dodged while stabbing with his spear and sweeping with his shield. After absorbing a lot of combat experience from his opponent, he was not afraid of such a melee. A God Realm warrior was hit by a truck under Johnny's attack. The God Realm warrior's head was shattered on the spot, and his body hit the wall, making a shallow pit. When he drooped softly, he had become a corpse, without a breath. And Johnny's movements were very fast. After killing one person, he didn't pause at all. As soon as his toes touched the ground, he immediately kicked out again. Is it the moves of those guards and prisoners? Thank you so much for helping me with your lives. A kick hit the side of a God's Domain warrior's face, and the jailer's head was twisted and died on the spot. Don't be chaotic, there are so many of us. Surround him. The leader, who looked like a captain, saw that several of his soldiers were killed by Johnny in almost a few rounds. His eyes were bloodshot. After a loud shout, he rushed towards Johnny, wanting to restrict Johnny and let others find an opportunity to launch a fatal attack. However, the idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. The captain of the God's Domain warriors found that his attacks could not keep up with Johnny's speed at all, let alone restrict him. The smooth punches and unimpeded kicks seemed to have been tempered 1,000 times. Every move was so smooth, without any sense of obstruction. A simple attack, with unparalleled lethality, would inevitably bring screams and blood. However, in just a short moment, all the God's Domain guards who had discovered the abnormality and rushed into the dungeon were killed by Johnny on the spot. Ghost. At this time, Johnny summoned the ghost again. Master. The dark energy condensed into the shape of a human-shaped bandage. The undead ghost had been summoned by him and stood respectfully in front of Johnny. It's time for you to enjoy the delicious food, Johnny said, and handed the corpses on the ground to the ghost, and walked out without looking back. Behind him, there was a creepy sound of biting and swallowing, and waves of heat flowed out of Johnny's body. Johnny's body was stained with a lot of blood, not only from the God's Domain soldiers, but also from himself. This was the mark left on his body when the God's Domain guards first shot. The ghost and the shield helped Johnny to resolve a large number of attacks, but not all of them. There were several bloody holes on Johnny's legs. With the heat flowing out of his body, these wounds began to heal rapidly. By the time Johnny finished walking down the steps of the dungeon, his injuries had healed. A touch of warm sunlight sprinkled on Johnny, making his nerves, which had gradually become numb after a large number of killings, relax a lot unconsciously. The matter of the dungeon can't be concealed for long. I must leave the God's Domain as soon as possible. Otherwise, if Odin returns with the army that conquered the God's Domain. Johnny carefully observed everything around him, thinking secretly in his heart, if I want to leave the God's Domain, there is only one way. Chapter 6 Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge. According to Johnny's memory, the God's Domain is located at the top of the 9 realms. Although there are some secret passages connecting it to other worlds, these secret passages are unknown to the people of the God's Domain, and it is even more difficult for him to find them for a while. Teleporting through the Rainbow Bridge is the fastest way to leave, but it is very risky. Thinking of this, Johnny's eyes showed a glimmer of brilliance. The God's Domain will be his first stop on the road to becoming a strong man. After a simple rest, Johnny has completely recovered his physical strength. A large amount of energy surged in his body, and there were many powers obtained by swallowing the warriors and prisoners of the God's Domain, all of which were accumulated in it for a while. But Johnny was in danger at this time, and he had no time to digest these things slowly. After walking out of the dungeon, Johnny saw the magnificent tall buildings of the God's Domain everywhere. It was a golden and magnificent sight. Oh no, I don't know the way, I don't know the terrain of the God's Domain at all, and I don't know where the Rainbow Bridge is. What should I do? Why didn't the swallowing let me plunder the memories of these God's Domain warriors about the God's Domain? After a short daze, Johnny quickly reacted and looked depressed. But soon, Johnny thought of a solution. The people of the God realm look exactly like ordinary humans. The only difference is that they have more or less divine power in their bodies. Now, I also have a little divine power in my body. Maybe I can pretend to be a person of the God realm, and then slowly find out the news. Thinking of this, Johnny smiled, randomly chose a road, and walked towards the tall golden building. In Johnny's opinion, Asgard and the earth where Johnny lived before crossing over are not much different except for the architectural style. Oh, and the clothes. However, this is not a big problem for Johnny. The arrogant people of the God realm would never believe that there would be humans outside the God realm who sneaked into the God realm quietly, killed all the guards in the dungeon, and dared to swagger on the streets of the God realm. It didn't take much effort for Johnny to understand the overall topographical distribution of the God realm clearly. Not only did he know the specific location of the Rainbow Bridge, But he also knew the underground treasure house where Odin stored various treasures. However, Johnny was just thinking about it. He didn't dare to really take action against the underground treasure house. For such an important place, even if Odin led a large army to go to war, he would definitely arrange forces to strictly guard it. Through talking with ordinary civilians in the god's domain, Johnny also got a very important piece of information. When Johnny mentioned Prince Thor and Prince Loki, the civilians in the god's domain all had strange expressions. Where are there any Prince Thor and Prince Loki? There is only Hela of Asgard under King Odin's throne. Speaking of Hela, the faces of the civilians in the god's domain showed fanaticism and awe, and their fanaticism for Hela even surpassed Odin. With Hela of Asgard, King Odin will definitely be able to rule the 9 realms, said a fanatic. Hela, Hela, goddess of death. Hela. After repeating Hela's name several times, Johnny realized Hela's identity: Odin's eldest heir, Thor's sister. As Odin's vanguard, Hela is conquering the 9 realms. Is this the God War period? Johnny was stunned for a moment after coming to this conclusion. He didn't expect that he would travel through time and space, but he actually traveled directly to the chaotic God War period. You know, during this period, Asgard rose, Odin was still in his prime, and Hela was also gradually rising. With the joint efforts of Odin and Hela, the conquest of the God realm brought a war that lasted for dozens or hundreds of years to the 9 realms. It seems that I can't stay in the God realm. I don't know when Odin and Hela will come back. I must leave as soon as possible. Johnny approached the magnificent Asgard and looked at the extremely magnificent palace in the deepest part of the Asgard. Odin's treasure house. Sooner or later I will visit it, Johnny said to himself in his heart, and without hesitation, he went towards the direction of the Rainbow Bridge. In Johnny's view, the Rainbow Bridge should be very important. After all, it is an important connection point between the God realm and the 9 realms. However, when Johnny carefully lurked near the Rainbow Bridge, he did not encounter the scene of heavy guards as he imagined. Why is there no one? Johnny wondered secretly. The Rainbow Bridge was empty. At the end of the long colorful road was the teleportation point. He did not see any guards on the way there. In fact, there were 2 main reasons why there were not many guards on the Rainbow Bridge, only one gatekeeper. First, the people of the god's domain were arrogant. Now Odin was in his prime and ambitious. Wherever the army of the god's domain passed, all the countries surrendered. They never thought that someone could invade the god's domain. Second, Odin led the army of the god's domain to fight and took away most of the elite of the god's domain. The remaining ones, except for maintaining the safety of the god's domain dungeon and Odin's treasure house, had no more troops to put on this Rainbow Bridge. But this was a good thing for Johnny, which meant that it would be much easier for him to leave through the Rainbow Bridge. Johnny hid in the dark and observed for a while. Originally, he planned to wait until dark before forcing his way through the Rainbow Bridge. But now, there was no need to be so troublesome. At this time, Johnny, in order not to arouse suspicion, had changed into the clothes of an ordinary resident of the god's domain, and went directly from one end of the Rainbow Bridge to the end of the Rainbow Bridge. The short Rainbow Bridge, which spanned the Star River, looked spectacular. However, Johnny was not in the mood to slowly appreciate this rare sight. He tried to keep himself calm and soon approached the teleportation point at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. "Stop, who are you?" A loud shout sounded, causing Johnny's face to change slightly. Chapter 7, Escape from the Divine Realm. This loud shout came from a guard in golden armor in a strange building with a round arch at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. Being stared at by this guard, Johnny felt a little dangerous, and his eyes fell on the wide strange giant sword in the other's hand. It was this sword that exuded a breath that made Johnny feel dangerous. The key to open the Rainbow Bridge, the Sword of Dawn. Just a weapon made Johnny feel dangerous, and Johnny made a quick judgment. However, what made Johnny breathe a sigh of relief was that now was the period of the God War, and the gatekeeper of the Rainbow Bridge was not Heimdall, the god of dawn who could peek into the 9 realms, but just a slightly stronger warrior of the God realm. Otherwise, if Johnny really faced Heimdall, he would not have much confidence to deal with him at the moment. Johnny tried his best to keep himself calm. While he stopped, The undead ghost quietly appeared beside Johnny at the same time, and according to Johnny's wishes, he kept approaching the gatekeeper holding the Sword of Dawn. When the gatekeeper saw Johnny, he was already alert. However, seeing the divine service on Johnny and the faint divine power he could release, he did not regard Johnny as an intruder. That was why Johnny was confident enough to take the risk. The distance between Johnny and the gatekeeper was less than 50 meters, and Johnny stood still without any unusual movement, deliberately paralyzing the gatekeeper. The undead ghost was extremely fast. After receiving Johnny's order, it approached quickly without any sound. 50 meters. 40 meters. 30 meters. 20 meters. Boom, boom. Just when the ghost was less than 20 meters away from the gatekeeper, a magnificent bell that shook the entire divine realm Asgard rang out rapidly, causing Johnny and the gatekeeper's faces to change at the same time. This is the alarm bell of the divine realm. It will only ring when the divine realm is in crisis. Who are you? As a gatekeeper, he was not stupid. Johnny's appearance did not make him too alert at first, but at this time, the alarm bell of the divine domain sounded, which seemed too strange. The dawn sword rang out and pointed at Johnny. A strange power surged from the sword body, and was about to lock Johnny. When the alarm bell rang, Johnny frowned and cursed in his heart. At the same time, he had sensed that not far from the Rainbow Bridge, a team of powerful guards were rushing here. Fight! Johnny did not hesitate and rushed towards the gatekeeper. The spear in his hand was shining, and the fluctuation of divine power became sharper. At the same time, the ghost finally sneaked in front of the gatekeeper, and his 5 fingers were like the sharpest dagger, slashing at the gatekeeper's head. What is this? At the moment when the ghost launched the attack, the gatekeeper's face changed, and the dawn sword that was originally pointing at Johnny was lifted up and stabbed at the ghost's falling claws. Fortunately, he got the bell warning and prepared for the battle. Otherwise the ghost's sudden attack would have killed him. Ding! The dawn sword collided with the ghost's sharp nails, and a streak of sparks burst out. The ghost's body, which was as light as nothing, quickly flew back after colliding with the artifact, avoiding the gatekeeper's next attack. When the undead ghost suddenly appeared, the gatekeeper was quite surprised, but fortunately, the artifact dawn sword in his hand forced the ghost back with one blow, which made the gatekeeper relax a lot. This suddenly appearing monster is not as scary as it looks. However, just when the gatekeeper just breathed a sigh of relief, boom! A powerful attack condensed by divine power has crossed the space and landed on the gatekeeper's chest, and then exploded. This attack was launched by Johnny, who had been preparing for a long time, and he grasped the timing perfectly. The ghost is Johnny's summoned creature, and the two are connected in mind. Every move of the ghost is under Johnny's control. Johnny was ready when he ordered the ghost to attack. The ghost was forced back by a sword, which was also Johnny's deliberate arrangement. The purpose was to show weakness to the enemy and let the other party relax, and he was waiting for this opportunity. Now the alarm bell of the god's domain sounded, and a pair of guards were coming over here. He had to end the battle in a short time and escape from the god's domain, otherwise, what awaits him is only the judgment of the god's domain. With a scream, the body of the gatekeeper was thrown away, and the armor on his chest could not withstand Johnny's long accumulated blow, and it exploded directly. The flesh and blood on the gatekeeper's chest also exploded along with the armor. When he fell heavily to the ground, the gatekeeper's face was pale, and blood mixed with broken internal organs had already flowed out of the corners of his mouth. His breath was much weaker than before. Looking at Johnny, who was approaching rapidly not far away, the gatekeeper's eyes had a strong unwillingness. Until now, he still didn't believe that Johnny, a fellow of the god's domain, would kill his own people. However, the unwillingness in the gatekeeper's eyes soon turned into fear, and then froze. The undead ghost's sharp nails, like knives, scratched his neck, causing the gatekeeper's consciousness to fall into the abyss of darkness. I've been discovered again. After Johnny launched an attack and knocked down the gatekeeper, he ran to the end of the Rainbow Bridge. In a few breaths, he had already arrived in front of the lost gatekeeper and grabbed the Sword of Dawn next to the gatekeeper's body. At this time, a team of God's Domain warriors had discovered the abnormality of the Rainbow Bridge and rushed to Johnny's position. In less than 10 breaths, they would cross the distance of the Rainbow Bridge and surround Johnny. Behind this team of God's Domain warriors, Johnny could see that more God's Domain warriors were also rushing towards the Rainbow Bridge. Damn it, there is no time at all. In response, Johnny, who got the Sword of Dawn, cursed in his heart. The ghost could only devour the gatekeeper's body to obtain the gatekeeper's method of using the Rainbow Bridge, but in the current situation, there was no enough time. Johnny's face was ugly, and his eyes flashed with this terrible light. After a breath, he had made a decision. He held the Sword of Dawn in his hands tightly and inserted it into the center of the round arch building. On a raised platform, the strange energy was penetrated by the artifact Sword of Dawn, making the complicated magic patterns on the ground all shine, and the huge building arch was also constantly rotating. Johnny's eyes moved slightly, and he slowly twisted the Sword of Dawn, which accelerated the shining of the magic patterns on the ground. Crack, the arch rotated faster and faster, and the shining door was gradually opening, revealing a strange spatial atmosphere. It was obvious that the transmission channel was about to open. The only thing that was uncertain was the location of this channel. I hope you don't send me to Odin and Hela. Johnny's eyes were filled with a determined light, and he suddenly jumped into the fully opened shining portal. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Desperate Breakout. Just as the alarm bell of the God's Domain sounded, somewhere in the Flame World, one of the 9 kingdoms, the eyes of God King Odin and Goddess of Death Hela, who were fighting against endless flame creatures, moved at the same time. When they looked at each other, there was a gleam of brilliance. Boom! The terrifying power of death erupted from Hela, the goddess of death. These death powers instantly condensed into countless terrifying swords, completely killing the surrounding flame creatures. God King Odin waved the artifact Judgment Spear in his hand, and the terrifying rune power flowed, forcibly penetrating the space. At the other end of the space, the breath of the God's Domain could be felt. Leave it to you, Hela, Odin said in a low voice. Hela nodded slowly, and her body flew into the air, entering the space channel opened by Odin using the rune power, and heading to the God's Domain. Odin, you will be reduced to ashes by the eternal fire. When Hela left, a roar that shook the entire space sounded in the Flame World. The Lord of the Flame World, as tall as a mountain, was surrounded by the eternal fire and held the Twilight Sword and launched the most ferocious attack on Odin. Johnny didn't know that just when he threw himself into the portal of the Rainbow Bridge, the figure of the Goddess of Death Hela suddenly appeared on the Rainbow Bridge. The Goddess of Death Hela had a graceful figure, but her eyes were as cold as ice. When she glanced at him, she saw the gatekeeper whose body was still warm on the ground. Humphrey, how dare you sneak into the God's realm and kill my God realm warriors? Even if you escape to the corner of the universe, you can't get rid of the shadow of death. Feeling the remaining breath in front of the portal, Hela spoke coldly, and the power of death rippled, forming countless extremely sharp swords. Following Hela's will, they shot into the transmission channel. As the eldest heir of Odin, Hela has terrible power and strength. She has always been decisive in killing. The decision she made in an instant was to kill Johnny directly during the transmission process. After jumping into the space passage opened by the Rainbow Bridge that led to nowhere, Johnny's eyes changed in time and space, which was completely colorful. Countless illusory pictures passed by in the brilliant light and shadow like a horse-drawn tour, and it was impossible to see clearly. Just when Johnny was slightly relieved, a terrible palpitation made him have goosebumps all over his body. Because the attack launched by the Goddess of Death Hela had traced the source of the teleportation beam and killed Johnny. The sharp sword blades formed by the condensation of countless death powers, with suffocating coldness, had arrived behind Johnny. If Johnny had not sensed the crisis and turned his head quickly, he would have been turned into limbs and flesh by the dense sword blades before the teleportation was completed. At this moment, Johnny felt the ultimate threat of death. Under this terrible pressure of death, his heart was clearer than ever before. He had just traveled to this world. Was he going to fall before he had time to rise? No, never. There was a voice in Johnny's heart roaring wildly. "Ghost!" Johnny shouted, and the undead ghost he had summoned instantly blocked Johnny and the countless sword blades, and rushed towards the sharp blades without hesitation. Johnny himself held the shield used by the God Realm warriors tightly in his hands, and crouched down completely, trying to hide himself completely behind the shield. Puff! The sound of dense blades piercing flesh rang out in this strange teleportation space. The undead ghost summoned by Johnny had already been considered strong after devouring many enemies, but it was still too weak to face the sharp blades condensed by the power of death. It hardly played a role in blocking, and its body was cut into pieces. As a sharp blade pierced through the ghost's mummy-like brain, the undead ghost could no longer resist, and its broken body turned into energy and dissipated. As the summoner of the ghost, Johnny had already sensed the moment the ghost dissipated, and all the strength in his body poured into his arms, holding the shield tightly. With a series of ding-dong sounds, countless sharp blades nailed onto the shield. The powerful force rebounded from the shield, making Johnny feel that he was about to lose his hand. Moreover, the size of the shield was not enough to completely protect Johnny's body. Several sharp blades had already passed through Yifeng's body, exposed outside the shield. Blood splattered all over Johnny's body in an instant. After passing through Johnny's body, the momentum of the sharp blades did not decrease. It shot on the edge of the transmission light column, and then penetrated and disappeared. In an instant, Johnny's body was cut by many sharp blades. Under the severe pain, the blood stained his clothes red. However, although these injuries made Johnny painful, they were not fatal. The vibration of the shield in his hand became more and more intense. Facing the impact of countless sharp blades, the powerful shield made of special metal and the divine domain gradually showed a tendency to collapse. In the space channel, the torrent of sharp blades shot in, and there was no sign of stopping. While Johnny's hands were shaking, his brain was working rapidly, and a fierce look soon flashed in his eyes. "It seems that I can only give it one more try." After making the decision, Johnny's body, without a fulcrum, was completely pressed against the edge of the teleportation beam. Several sharp blades cut Johnny's body, and then shot at the edge of the teleportation beam. The sharp tip of the sword pierced the teleportation beam without any hindrance, forming a crack. The crack was narrow, but it was barely enough for Johnny to get in. Seizing this opportunity, Johnny twisted his body desperately and got into the violent energy crack regardless of everything. "If I can survive, goddess of death Hela, I will definitely let you taste my pain today." From the brilliant space channel to the dark and silent unknown space, Johnny's eyes went dark. The last thought flashed through his mind, and he had completely fallen into a coma. Humphrey, sensing that the invader from the divine domain in the teleportation beam had lost his breath, Hela snorted coldly, and the huge death power on her body slowly converged, and the fierce momentum also disappeared. "You are really brave. Facing a fatal attack, you actually thought of getting rid of the teleportation beam and entering the void space. In this way, although the chance of survival is also close to zero, you can live a little longer," Hela murmured, slowly twisting the Sword of Judgment to close the Rainbow Bridge. From the time Hela was teleported back by Odin to the time Johnny risked escaping from the crack of the teleportation beam, it was only a short 10 breaths. When the Rainbow Bridge was closed, the God's Realm warriors who had arrived earlier rushed to Hela. Seeing the Goddess of Death return to the God's Realm because of the God's Realm alarm, many guards were nervous, and there was obvious awe and fear in their eyes. Chapter 9 Wanted and Divine Realm. A bunch of good-for-nothings. I stayed in the God's domain to guard it just because of you useless people, but I didn't expect that someone would sneak into the God's domain and alarm me and Odin. Looking at the group of guards who came late, Hela spoke in a cold voice. Although there was no momentum, it made these people tremble. The name of the Goddess of Death Hela not only frightened her opponents, but also the warriors of the God's domain. After a scolding, seeing that everyone dared not speak, Hela's face was cold and she lost interest in scolding. "Tell me everything that happened in the God's domain." Although she was a woman, Hela always exuded the aura of a superior king. In the God's domain at this time, Odin only had Hela as his heir, and he valued her very much. and trained her as a successor. Hela did not disappoint Odin's expectations, and even far exceeded Odin's expectations. The god's domain warriors who sounded the alarm did not dare to hide anything at all, and told everything that happened in detail. Suddenly appeared in the dungeon of the god's domain, and killed all the prisoners and guards? You bunch of rubbish. The more Hela listened, the colder her eyes became, and her heart was already furious. Your Highness Hela, it's not that we didn't do our best, but the other party's ability is too weird. In the dungeon, whether it's prisoners or guards, all are left with only skeletons. That scene, a leading god's domain warrior trembled and spoke, and a group of god's domain warriors who had seen the tragic scene in the dungeon couldn't help but nod and agree. After some understanding, Hela also got a general idea of what happened in the god's domain this time. The only thing that puzzled her was that according to the various information she got from the guards of the god's domain, the intruder was clearly a human. Not to mention that the atrium is very far away from the god's domain. It is almost impossible to cross the distance without the Rainbow Bridge. According to Hela's understanding of the atrium, the humans living in it should be the weakest race in the 9 realms. Not to mention technology, even civilization has not yet been fully formed, and they live a barbaric and primitive life. No matter how this human came to the god's domain, his crime is unforgivable just because he killed the god's domain guards. He has absolutely no chance of survival if he kills a god's domain warrior. Pass my order. This human is wanted in the territory ruled by the god's domain. If he appears, he must be immediately surrounded and suppressed. In the end, Hela issued a wanted order, which quickly spread from the god's domain to the world conquered by the god's domain. No one knew the name of the human who sneaked into the god's domain. He was named Corpse Eater by the god's domain. As soon as the news came out, the entire country under the rule of the god's domain felt very incredible, and Corpse Eater became a topic of discussion for a while. At this time, Johnny, the Corpse Eater wanted by the god's domain, was not in a good situation. Facing the attack of Hela's death power, Johnny chose to break through the transmission light column and enter the dead and dark space, and then fell into a coma. However, his body entered a strange time and space, and was floating aimlessly in it. This space-time is located deep in the universe, very far from the god's domain, and not in the territory ruled by the god's domain at all. The only problem is that the space where Johnny is located has a very chaotic power of space-time, which is very different from the universe. It can be said that this space is an alien space that exists dependent on the universe. The time and space of the universe are very different from this alien space. It is possible that Johnny has been drifting in the alien space for countless years, which is just a moment for the universe. It is also possible that Johnny only stayed in this alien space for a moment, and tens of millions of years have passed in the outside world. Johnny, who was in a coma, didn't know that just after he fell into a coma, there were strands of strange light floating in the alien space, gradually coming towards his body, floating around his motionless body. As time passed, these strange lights became more and more, gradually wrapping Johnny's body, but they did not stay on him, but revolved around him. At a certain moment, a strange suction force surged out of Johnny's body, and all the strange lights near Johnny were attracted, and turned into strands of energy and drilled into Johnny's body. Ding! Sufficient cosmic energy has been detected, enough to complete the optimization. System optimization begins. The crisp sound of the devouring system echoed in Johnny's brain. The energy that surged out of Johnny's body was relatively mild at first, and it only pulled the misty light surrounding Johnny's body into Johnny's body. But soon, this suction force increased tenfold and 100-fold. And the range of attraction became larger and larger. As the suction force increased, more and more lights lit up in the entire space, gathered together, and almost completely illuminated a large area around Johnny's body. After all these misty energies entered Johnny's body became crystal clear. As the amount of light increased, Johnny's body almost became a light source, and through his clothes and skin, his flesh, bones, and internal organs were clearly visible. The energy contained in these lights is strange. After entering Johnny's body, the wounds on Johnny's body, big and small, are also recovering rapidly. and soon they are completely restored to their original state. If Johnny had not fallen into a deep coma because of the previous danger, but was awake, he would be surprised to feel the changes in his body. After the misty energy entered his body, it traveled all over his body. Part of the energy was absorbed by all his cells, making the cells shine and undergoing some strange changes. After all the cells sensed this energy, they all made a happy sound, stretched out, and greedily absorbed the endless energy, just like the thirsty earth encountering the rain. However, it is difficult to digest the strange energy in this space in a short time with only the absorption of the cells in the body. Most of the energy attracted by the attraction entered somewhere in Johnny's body. Here, it is like there is a black hole, all the energy is swallowed up, and after the huge energy enters, the black hole does not react at all. The process of swallowing the strange energy in this space lasted for a long time, and the unconscious Johnny did not feel it. In his consciousness, he only felt vaguely that his body seemed to be soaking in a hot spring pool, and all 128,000 pores on his body were dilated and made comfortable sounds. This feeling was unprecedented. This alien space was attached to the universe and was not too huge. The strange energy in it was rapidly decreasing in the face of Johnny's body's swallowing, which also caused the alien space to shrink and vibrate. It seems that it was these energies that allowed this alien space to exist. Now that it was swallowed by Johnny without restraint, it made the alien space more and more unstable. I don't know how long it had passed. Johnny felt that his consciousness had slowly recovered and returned to his body, and a crisp electronic sound rang in his brain at the right time. Ding! System optimization completed. With the sound of the electronic sound, Johnny's tightly closed eyes slowly opened, and a bright light flashed from his eyes. Chapter 10 System Optimization. I'm fine. Johnny, who had just woken up, felt a little bit, and there was a little more surprise in his eyes. At this time, Johnny could not find any scars on his body. Not only that, there was also a strong force flowing in his body, giving him the illusion that he could break through the space with one punch. Johnny's eyes swept over and saw the space he was in clearly. At this time, there was still a faint energy light lingering around his body, but the attraction in his body had dissipated, and these weak energies began to spread out on their own. Could it be that these energies caused strange changes in my body? Looking at the energy that gradually dispersed, Johnny's eyes flashed with a thought, and then he thought of the system prompt he heard when he woke up. System, what does optimization mean? Thinking of this, Johnny said in his heart, Host, after obtaining the huge energy of the alien space, the system has completed the optimization, and all the specific information has entered your brain. You can check it at any time. After Johnny asked, the voice of the system sounded, and a lot of information quickly emerged in Johnny's brain. This information made Johnny slightly stunned, and a touch of surprise appeared on his face. Swallowing an opponent not only allows me to gain the opponent's abilities, but also enhances these abilities through strengthening. Johnny couldn't help but mutter after understanding the information in his brain. It turned out that after swallowing a huge amount of energy, the system was optimized for swallowing. Before the system was optimized, Johnny could improve himself and gain the opponent's abilities after swallowing the opponent. However, this ability has limitations. He can use it after a short period of familiarity. However, the ability Johnny can use is only as strong as the opponent he swallowed. There is no way to improve it. Now it is different. After the system is optimized, Johnny has two choices when swallowing an enemy. The first is to completely deprive the enemy of the ability Johnny needs and transfer it to Johnny completely. The second is to convert the enemy into swallowing points after swallowing, which can be used to strengthen Johnny's skills. This strengthening is all round and has no upper limit. The stronger the opponent swallowed, the more swallowing points he will get. System, open my attribute panel. After understanding the changes after the system optimization, Johnny immediately opened his own attribute panel. This attribute panel is also a product of system optimization, which allows Johnny to see his various ability data clearly and intuitively anytime and anywhere. As Johnny issued the command, a holographic panel with a faint light suddenly appeared in front of Johnny. This faint light panel can only be seen by Johnny, the host. On the left side of the faint light panel is Johnny's avatar, and on the right is the status of Johnny's attributes. This status bar is divided into two parts, one island the swallowing point, and the other is the skill bar, host, Johnny swallowing point, 0 skills 1, fighting, passive, LV32, fire control LV23, ice control LV24, divine power LV1. The attribute interface is very simple and can be read at a glance. Under each skill, there are many related skills, which are clearly introduced. Seeing the 4 abilities he currently has, Johnny is a little helpless. Johnny knows that these abilities were obtained after he killed many prisoners and guards in the God's Domain dungeon. However, the levels of several skills have only reached 1 or 2 levels, which seems a bit tasteless to Johnny. I know that divine power can be infused into the weapon Dawn used by the warriors of the God realm to enhance its power, but I was almost killed by the damn Hela before I had time to get familiar with the 2 abilities of controlling ice and fire. After getting familiar with the optimized system, Johnny couldn't help but mutter, boom. Just when Johnny was still lost in thought, the vibration of the surrounding space pulled Johnny back to reality from his contemplation. What's going on in this space? Feeling the abnormal vibration of the space, Johnny's face darkened. After he woke up just now, he was busy trying to understand the changes that had happened to him and ignored the environment he was in. Now the vibrations around him were getting more and more intense, making him feel that the space was about to collapse. Oh no! Amidst the loud rumbling, the entire space shattered directly as Johnny had judged, and dazzling rays of light shone in from the cracks in the shattered space, making it difficult for Johnny to see clearly for a while. After a short blank, Johnny opened his eyes and looked at the entire shattered space through the increasingly larger cracks in the space. He was shocked for a moment. With the light shining in from the cracks in the space, the entire silent and dim space was completely exposed in front of Johnny. This space was like a huge mirror that fell heavily on the ground and broke into countless pieces, looking bizarre. And through the cracks, Johnny could see another real world behind the space. A strange planet appeared in front of Johnny. The surface of this planet was filled with countless messy garbage, like hills, which made Johnny roll his eyes. The environment of this planet is too bad, isn't it? However, Johnny's thoughts did not last too long. In the empty space in front of him, a huge crack appeared, and the gravity of the outside planet suddenly acted on Johnny, allowing Johnny to get rid of the floating state and fall from the crack in the space. Damn, so high. When Johnny reacted, he only had time to curse inwardly, and then with a bang, he fell into a pile of messy garbage. A human-shaped pit suddenly appeared on the garbage pile that was like a hill. After a while, Johnny's painful voice was heard in the human-shaped pit. Damn, it hurts so much. After a lot of noise, Johnny finally climbed out of the big pit he had smashed. His originally clean body was now covered with all kinds of garbage. He was as embarrassed as he could be. Although he looked embarrassed, Johnny didn't have many substantial injuries. First, in the strange space, he absorbed a lot of special energy. This energy changed Johnny's body and made his physique undergo earth-shaking changes, becoming many times stronger. Second, this garbage hill was very fluffy. Although it was a little dirty, it was undeniable that when Johnny fell, the garbage hill helped him buffer a lot of impact. Standing on the garbage hill where he had created a big hole, Johnny felt a little depressed and was about to look around, intending to figure out where he was first. From the garbage hill where Johnny was, there were many huge cemeteries in the sky, and from time to time all kinds of garbage poured out of the cemeteries and hit the ground without a track. Did I end up in a space garbage dump? Chapter 11 Encounter with Scavengers. As if in response to Johnny's complaints, a huge pile of space junk fell from the sky and landed again not far from the hill where Johnny was, raising a lot of dust. Before Johnny could react, there was a roar above his head, which immediately attracted Johnny's attention. Spaceship? This was a strange-looking spaceship. On the surface, it looked like a mess of metals pieced together. It was equipped with 4 propellers and looked very shabby. The spaceship landed right in front of Johnny. It was obviously because it found Johnny's traces that it stopped. Seeing the spaceship stop, Johnny suddenly became nervous. He hadn't figured out where he was and what kind of opponent he was about to face, and his experience in the God's domain told him that in this universe, there was no reasoning, and fists were the hard truth. Under Johnny's gaze, the door of the spaceship slowly opened, and a group of humanoid creatures with tattered clothes and strange masks on their faces walked out. What made Johnny's eyes slightly fixed was that all the people had weapons in their hands, which obviously had bad intentions. Although they were wearing masks and their faces were not clear, Johnny could see the obvious greed and violence in their eyes. "Are you a fighter, or an ordinary person?" The man standing in the front waved his weapon and asked Johnny. As he spoke, he took off the mask on his face, revealing a strange-looking face. Although his facial features were clear, his skin was completely pale, which looked a bit creepy, like a ghost face. "Fighter, I just arrived on this planet, so I should be an ordinary person." Johnny was a little confused and could only explain it this way. "Ordinary person. Very good, our food is here." After hearing Johnny's explanation, the ghost-faced man smiled, looked at the others, and his eyes became hot. "Kneel down," the ghost-faced man said arrogantly, and the others behind him had already dispersed and were about to surround Johnny. When the ghost-faced man said the word food, Johnny already knew that it would be impossible to resolve this matter peacefully. However, facing this group of tattered weirdos, Johnny was not afraid at all. Instead, he was eager to try. The undead ghost stood behind Johnny silently. "You are just the right person to test my current strength, Ghost. It's time to eat." Surrounded by the crowd, Johnny's eyes were calm and he said in a low voice. After receiving Johnny's order, the ghost, who had not eaten for a long time and was a little impatient, did not hesitate at all and pounced on one person. The man chosen by the ghost suddenly saw the ghost's terrifying figure in his greedy and excited eyes, and screamed, "What is this? Ah!" With a scream, the ghost's sharper nails had torn his body apart, blood splattered, and the people surrounding Johnny were covered with sticky blood. This scene made the faces of the people surrounding Johnny change. His companions died directly under the screams of fear, but they could not see any attack. The group of people who had just excitedly surrounded Johnny as food suddenly became nervous and stopped their steps. In this chaotic moment, Johnny also moved. After devouring many warriors and prisoners from the god realm, Johnny's physical fitness has improved a lot. In addition, in the mysterious time and space, he has absorbed a huge amount of strange cosmic energy, which makes his body full of explosive energy. Johnny himself was a little surprised by this move. Almost in the blink of an eye, he had rushed to the person who surrounded him. Before the other party could react, Johnny's fist hit the other party's chest. The crisp sound of bone breaking and a scream sounded at the same time. With one punch, the other party was thrown directly into the air and fell to the ground with a bang. The blood in his mouth was like a fountain. Looking at the man who was hit by Johnny's punch at this time, the greed and cruelty in his eyes had completely dissipated, and his vitality also dissipated. Two people died in a short time. Even if the other party was outnumbered, they could not help but feel panic and could not understand what happened. "Don't be afraid, there are so many of us, go." The ghost-faced man was obviously the leader of the crowd. Seeing the two people fall down in an instant, there was some fear in his eyes, but he took advantage of the number of people and rushed towards Johnny. Seeing these mobs rushing over, Johnny's eyes were cold. "Ghost, kill happily." After a low shout, Johnny had picked up his strange-shaped weapon from the hand of the man who lost it on the ground, and smiled coldly at the people who rushed over. The fierce battle started instantly. Facing the siege of the crowd, Johnny seemed to be at ease. With his strength and fighting ability far exceeding that of the opponent, he was not at all inferior even in the siege of the crowd. When he found an opportunity, he would strike fiercely and harvest a life in an instant. The ghosts who received the order were even more terrible in killing. Using the characteristics of the undead ghosts, the opponent can only see the ghost's body when the ghost launches an attack, and the moment this group of mobs saw the ghost, it marked the end of their lives. The thick smell of blood gradually spread, making Johnny's body and nerves more excited. His strength continued to increase, causing fear in the eyes of many of the mob that besieged Johnny. The ghost-faced man who first asked the question should be the leader of the group. The death of his men made him angry, and he attacked more fiercely. However, when the ghost-faced man saw many of his men being killed inexplicably and their bodies torn apart, even he felt a little scared. If it was just the battle with Johnny, They would not be scary. As scavengers, they often killed and robbed, and their hearts were cruel, but the fear of their companions' inexplicable death made everyone feel cold on their backs, fearing that they would be torn apart inexplicably in the next second. There was another scream of fear, and the body of a scavenger was torn apart from the back, and then fell to the ground, completely igniting the fear in the hearts of all the scavengers. What on earth is that? He's a demon. Run away. Fear is contagious. As long as one scavenger chooses to run away, the formation besieging Johnny will immediately fall apart. Even the scolding of the ghost-faced man is ignored by everyone. Seeing that everyone is scared out of their wits and is about to scatter, how can Johnny, who is killing people vigorously, let them escape so easily? Let you taste the power of fire. Johnny's mouth curled up slightly, and rich flame energy was already condensed on his hands. Devouring the prisoners in the God's Domain dungeon, Johnny gained the level 2 fire control ability, which was the first time he showed it in battle. The rich flame energy formed 2 fireballs, one of which was thrown by Johnny suddenly chasing after a scavenger who was fleeing, and landed on the opponent's back in the blink of an eye. Boom. Chapter 12. The first mission. The flame energy sphere landed on the scavenger's back, just like a powerful bomb, and exploded the moment it came into contact. The intense flames swept in all directions. The body of the attacked scavenger was already covered with flames and explosions. When the flames subsided, nothing was left. The violent explosions and the bodies of their companions that exploded and disappeared made many scavengers more fearful and completely lost the will to continue fighting. Johnny was able to withstand their siege with just his strong physique and excellent fighting ability, and now he actually showed his terrifying flame ability. Such a powerful existence was beyond the enemies they had faced before. Continuing to fight would be tantamount to seeking death. The ghost-faced man reacted the fastest. When his men were horrified, he had already run towards the spaceship not far away. As long as he could get on the spaceship, his hope of escape would increase greatly. Want to run? Johnny was also a little surprised about his fire ability. Seeing that the ghost-faced man wanted to escape, he threw another fireball in his hand with great force, and chased after the ghost-faced man with a bright yellow tail of flame. When the flames shot out, the ghost-faced man only felt a burning sensation on his back. He was so frightened that he didn't dare to look back. His instinct from years of fighting made him roll and fall to the ground. The fireball launched by Johnny flew over the ghost-faced man's head at the moment he fell, and landed not far away. It exploded directly, completely destroying the mountain of garbage. The ghost-faced man rolled on the ground for a few rounds and saw the blazing flames. With cold sweat on his back, he didn't dare to stop at all. He turned around and got up and shouted and rushed towards the spaceship. The ghost-faced man avoided the attack, which surprised Johnny, but he didn't mean to let him go. Ghost, the other people who escaped are left to you. Yifeng gave an order to the ghost who was slaughtering crazily in his heart. Yes, my master. The ghost's voice sounded in Johnny's mind, with bloodthirsty excitement, and screams rang out from time to time. After giving the order, Johnny looked at the ghost-faced man who was about to escape into the spaceship, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. After squatting slightly, Johnny's muscles bulged, and his powerful physical strength completely exploded. After suddenly kicking the ground, he rushed towards the ghost-faced man who was stumbling towards the spaceship like a cannonball. Johnny now has a strong physical strength, and the speed of instantaneous explosion is also very terrifying. In just a few breaths, he has crossed a distance of dozens of meters. Just as the ghost-faced man rushed onto the spaceship frantically, with a look of relief on his face after surviving the disaster, and was about to start the spaceship to escape, a strong wind came from behind, and Johnny had already rushed onto the spaceship. So anxious, you want to leave without saying hello? Johnny's cold voice rang in the ears of the ghost-faced man. This voice was less than 1 meter away from the ghost-faced man. In panic, the ghost-faced man ignored his fear and gathered all his strength in the stick-like weapon in his hand, sweeping it behind him. Bang! With a muffled sound, Johnny's palm, like a pair of pliers, had already firmly grasped the stick that the ghost-faced man was attacking with. Without giving the ghost-faced man any time to react, Johnny turned his body to the side, raised his knee, and kneed the ghost-faced man in the stomach. almost knocking the ghost-faced man off the ground. After enduring this blow, the ghost-faced man completely lost his ability to move, curled up on the ground like a shrimp, and spit out a lot of filthy food residue mixed with a trace of blood from his mouth. Johnny threw away the ghost-faced man's weapon, looked down at the ghost-faced man in pain in front of him, and listened to the dying screams from time to time outside. Who would have thought that just a moment ago, these people were still surrounding Johnny, looking arrogant. "My lord, please don't kill me, please." The ghost-faced man's face was originally too pale, and now he was in pain, even paler. He faced Johnny and struggled to beg for mercy. Johnny looked at the ghost-faced man struggling in front of him, and there was no mercy in his eyes. Since he inexplicably crossed into this world, Johnny's mentality has changed drastically. He will no longer have useless mercy towards his enemies. The screams outside the spaceship have gradually subsided, and the body of the undead ghost slowly floated behind Johnny. Seeing the ghost coming, Johnny showed a cold smile on his face. Among the group of scavengers who wanted to treat him as food, the only one who was still alive was the ghost-faced man in front of him. "Now, you answer whatever I ask. If you say anything nonsense, you will die." Johnny looked at the ghost-faced man whose face was twisted by pain and fear, and slowly spoke. "Understood, my lord. I will tell you everything I know, as long as you don't kill me." The ghost-faced man, whose fear reached the extreme, seemed to have grabbed the last straw and spoke quickly. After some questioning, the man with the ghost face told everything he knew. Combining a lot of information, Johnny had a general understanding of his current situation. "I didn't expect that I would accidentally leave the god's domain and come to Sikr," Johnny murmured in a low voice, and he had already obtained the information he wanted. Sikr, an extremely chaotic and barbaric planet. The location of Sikr is very peculiar. There are many cosmic channels on the surface of the planet that can lead to various known and unknown universes. Ordinary spacecraft cannot enter and exit from the outer space of Sikr normally. It is used by people from many other planets as a garbage dump and a place for criminals to be exiled. Therefore, the entire Sikr is full of garbage and the people are tough and violent. The social order is managed by Jayat Anzun, and people on the planet like to watch arena fighting. Trigger a random task. Defeat the active champion, and become the new champion of the championship battle. Complete the task and get a special reward. If the task fails, the host will be deprived of all skills. At this moment, the crisp electronic sound of the system sounded in Johnny's mind, which made Johnny slightly stunned and his expression changed slightly. Johnny, a time traveler, has a certain understanding of the championship battle held by Jayat Anzun. The championship battle is just an entertainment for Jayat Anzun, one of the elders of the universe, to pass the time during his almost infinite life. A large number of powerful fighters are thrown into the duel field to fight, and the final winner is called the King Champion. After hearing the task issued by the system, Johnny fell into deep thought. With his current strength, it would be quite difficult to face the active champion of the championship battle, but with the existence of the devouring system, his chances will be greatly increased. As long as he is given enough time and continues to devour and improve, Johnny will not be afraid of a champion of the championship battle, even a god. However, before participating in the championship battle, there are other things to do. "Ghost, let's eat." Johnny finally glanced at the ghost-faced man kneeling in front of him, and then whispered to the ghost beside him. Chapter 13. Journey to the City of Champions. All enemies have been completely devoured. According to the host's request, they have been converted into devouring points. A total of 30 devouring points have been obtained. The system's crisp voice sounded. This was the result of the ghost devouring all the scavengers' bodies. "Only 30 devouring points? System, if I want to upgrade the skill level I already have, how much can 30 devouring points increase?" Johnny communicated with the system through his mind. For the corresponding skills, each upgrade of LV1 requires 100 devouring points. There is no upper limit for a single skill level. Johnny's inquiry was quickly answered, but this answer made Johnny smile bitterly. It takes 100 points to upgrade LV1. He killed a whole team of scavengers, more than 20 people, and only got 30 devouring points. In other words, after a scavenger is devoured, he can only get 1-2 devouring points. This is too fucking pitiful, right? As if hearing Johnny's complaints, the system's prompt sounded again. The acquisition of devouring points will be allocated differently according to the strength of the devoured object. The host devoured all ordinary beings this time, and the devouring points are at most 2 points. After getting the system's explanation, Johnny could only acquiesce. Although a little disappointed, these scavengers are indeed just the most ordinary beings as the system said. After some thought, Johnny kept 30 devouring points and began to consider the tasks issued by the system. From the mouth of the ghost-faced man who had been devoured, Johnny learned the general situation of Sokka. Sokka is very large, many times larger than ordinary stars. The area ruled by Jaitanzun is on the other side of the planet. To complete the tasks issued by the system, the first thing is to cross most of Sokka and enter the area ruled by Jaitanzun. Moreover, it is not enough to just go to the area ruled by Jaitanzun. To qualify for the championship battle, you need to go through layers of elimination and screening before you can finally be shortlisted. Or, if you show enough strength and are recommended by the few scavenger warriors under Jaitanzun, you can directly skip the elimination round and enter the championship battle. At present, Johnny has killed this group of scavengers, occupied their shabby spaceship, and crossed most of Sakura to reach the prosperous area ruled by Jaitanzun. The only thing that makes Johnny a little undecided is which way to choose to compete for the championship. If he directly finds a scavenger warrior under Jaitanzun and asks the scavenger warrior to recommend him, Johnny can avoid the tedious process of rounds of eliminations and directly enter the championship competition. But in this way, Johnny does not have the confidence to win. According to the information obtained from the ghost-faced man, those who can participate in the championship competition are all very powerful. Among them, there are not only the mothers from the Zerg Mother planet, but also the nearly extinct Eternal Titan clan, and countless strong men from different galaxies. In the end, Johnny thought again and decided to enter the championship competition from the elimination rounds. In this way, he will have enough time to hone his actual combat ability through one battle after another, and at the same time he can devour the body of his opponent, not only having the opportunity to obtain powerful special abilities, but also improving several skills he already has. Boom! The scavenger's dilapidated spaceship shook and slowly took off. After reaching a certain height, the thruster power was adjusted to the maximum and it rushed towards the distant sky. There were only a lot of broken skeletons left on the spot. As a large amount of garbage fell into various holes in the sky, these remains were also buried deep underground. 3 days later, the shabby spaceship driven by Johnny finally crossed the distance of half a planet and approached the planet ruled by Jaitanzun. Along the way, Johnny and the spaceship also encountered more than one scavenger's spaceship. These scattered scavengers, large and small forces, often fought, ending with the complete death of one side or surrender. Every time he encountered other scavenger spaceships, Johnny tried to avoid them. It was not because he was afraid of these scavengers, but, as a mob of scavengers, it was difficult for Johnny to arouse much interest. Even if he killed dozens of people, he might only get less than 100 devouring points, which was not enough for Johnny to upgrade a skill. Finally getting close, the championship battle. Wait for me. After 3 consecutive days of driving a spaceship, an ordinary person would probably be extremely exhausted, but Johnny's eyes were filled with enthusiasm for the championship battle, or in other words, the desire to become stronger. The scavenger spaceship ahead is prohibited from entering the city area without permission. Report your intention immediately, otherwise you will be treated as an illegal intruder. Just as Johnny was driving the spaceship forward, he was stopped by a fleet of more than 20 people, and a message was transmitted to Johnny's spaceship. Each warship in this fleet was more than 10 times larger than the shabby spaceship Johnny was driving. On the warships, the muzzles of various thermal and energy weapons were already aimed at Johnny's spaceship. I want to participate in the championship challenge. Surrounded by this fleet, Johnny did not panic at all, and spoke calmly through the spaceship communication. Johnny's voice was transmitted to the patrolling fleet under the command of Jaitanzun, causing the other party to fall into silence for a while. After Jaitanzun ruled Sokka, He issued a special decree: no matter who participates in the championship battle, he will be cared for by him, except in the fighting arena. No one can attack the fighters participating in the championship battle, otherwise, they will face his wrath. Lower the spaceship and follow us. After a while, a somewhat surprised voice sounded on the spaceship driven by Johnny, which made Johnny smile. The ghost-faced man did not lie to him. A moment later, Johnny had left the scavenger's shabby spaceship and was taken by a group of patrolling soldiers to the planet Patrol warship. Seeing Johnny's young face and his completely different dress from the scavengers, a group of Sokka soldiers in charge of patrolling looked at Johnny with gloating eyes. "Get out of the way," a rough voice sounded, causing a group of people who were looking at Johnny to disperse and make way. A tall man with a height of more than 2 meters stood out from the crowd and stood in front of Johnny. He had a strong momentum and looked at the quiet Johnny fiercely. "Boy, are you planning to participate in the championship match?" The tall man's voice was the same size as his body, and his words were full of arrogance and contempt. "It's me. Take me to see Anzun. I will talk to him in person." Surrounded by a group of Sokka warriors who were gloating over his misfortune, Johnny had a calm expression and no fear at all. "A waste like you actually wants to participate in the championship match? Sooner or later you will become a corpse. There is no need at all." The big man couldn't help laughing when he heard Johnny's words, and his words were even more contemptuous. The group of Sokka warriors who followed the big man also laughed wildly, looking at Johnny with eyes as if he were looking at an ignorant idiot. Being laughed at by a group of people, the corners of Johnny's mouth gradually raised a curve. Then, bang! Chapter 14. You dared to do it? Johnny's attack was launched in a flash, and before the big man could react, he landed a heavy punch on his face. This punch was powerful and heavy, weighing at least several hundred pounds, and landed right on the nose of the big man who was laughing wildly. The big man's sturdy body was knocked over by Johnny's punch, and he groaned in extreme pain. This was the result of Johnny's mercy. Otherwise, with his current physique and strength, if he punched with all his strength, even a heavy steel plate would probably be deformed. The laughter of the Sokka warriors stopped abruptly, and they all stared at the big man who was rolling on the ground and howling in pain. The blood had dyed the big man's face red, making him look very hideous. The big man's nose was hit hard, and the bones were completely shattered. The blood mixed with tears made the big man in great pain. "Ah, how dare you attack me! I'm going to kill you!" The big man covered his cheek. Blood could not stop flowing out, but the severe pain of the broken nose made him roar on the ground. "Go, kill him, damn beggar!" Under the severe pain, the big man had lost his mind. On his ferocious face, with unforgettable cruelty and hatred, he roared at the people around him. This big man obviously has a high status in the entire fleet. After receiving his order, everyone reacted and raised their energy weapons, aiming at Johnny. Facing dozens of weapons, Johnny's face was calm and he had no intention of attacking at all. "Let me remind you that I am a contestant in the championship battle. According to the rules of Sokka Star, if you dare to attack a fighter, the consequences." Humphrey. Seeing everyone approaching, Johnny spoke lightly. With just one sentence, all the Sokka warriors who surrounded him showed a hesitant look. Seeing everyone pause, Johnny's heart teased. It seems that he made the right bet. These people did not dare to attack him due to the intimidation of Anzun. "Captain, he is a contestant in the championship battle. If we kill him, the Grand Master..." After a hesitation, a Sokka warrior spoke to the big man who fell to the ground. When the Grand Master Anzun was mentioned, the furious big man was also stunned. He stared at Johnny with undisguised hatred in his eyes, like a beast that wanted to eat people. When he saw Johnny, he just regarded Johnny as the lowest scavenger on Sokka Star. The status of a scavenger is even lower than that of a beggar who picks up garbage on Earth. As the captain of the fleet directly under Anzun on Sokka Star, killing 10 or 8 people at will would not have any impact at all. It was precisely because of this subconscious superiority that the big man unscrupulously mocked and laughed at Johnny when he saw him. Now, his nose was broken and his face was covered with blood. However, the iron rule issued by Grand Master Anzun, the real ruler of Sokka Star, forced the big man to calm down even though he was furious. "Boy, You're good. You want to see the Grand Master, right? I'll take you there. The big man said this with gritted teeth, and the murderous intent in his eyes was not concealed. In this regard, Johnny completely relaxed. With the rules of Jyotanzun, at least before meeting Jyotanzun, these people did not dare to touch him. It seems that you finally recognized my identity and made the right choice. You should be glad that this decision allows you to live longer. Remember my name. My name is Johnny. Seeing the murderous intent in the other party's eyes, Johnny didn't care at all. He looked at the other party coldly and showed no weakness. The light in his eyes made the big man dare not look at him, and he felt a little more fear in his heart for no reason. The big man didn't know that the undead ghost had stood behind him silently. If he insisted on his own way and had to attack Johnny, then Johnny didn't stay in Sokka's fleet for too long. After what happened before, no one wanted to provoke Johnny anymore, not only because of the iron rule issued by the Supreme Lord. No one could attack the challenger of the championship battle, but also because of the inexplicable momentum on Johnny. That is a momentum that only the strong can have, a momentum that has truly experienced killing and is not afraid of everything. Although Johnny's momentum is still in its infancy, and there is still a long way to go compared to the real strong in the vast universe, but this invisible momentum is enough to deter these ordinary Sokka warriors. The speed of this fleet is much faster than the spaceship that Johnny took from the scavengers. Soon, it really entered the territory controlled by the Supreme Lord and entered an extremely magnificent building. Outside this magnificent building, there are many huge statues, the tallest of which is 100 meters high, with different faces, but without exception, each statue has a kind of momentum. It belongs to the momentum of a fighter. After the warship stopped, the hatch slowly opened, and Johnny walked down the warship under the guidance of a group of Sokka warriors. "Is this the challenger you mentioned?" Outside the warship, a woman in armor and with a cold face glanced at Johnny and asked the Sokka warrior who led Johnny. Yes, he volunteered to participate in the championship challenge, so we. The tall man with a swollen nose faced the woman, bowed slightly, and spoke respectfully. "Okay, I know, you come with me. I will take you to meet the ruler of Sokka, the great master Jyotanzun." The woman had no intention of talking nonsense, interrupted the big man's words, and turned away first. Johnny didn't care, and followed behind her, constantly shuttling through the magnificent buildings. Behind Johnny, a vicious look stared at Johnny until Johnny disappeared around the corner. It must be said that this place was built to be extremely luxurious by Jyotanzun. Johnny felt that his eyes were not enough along the way. After many twists and turns, Johnny was brought to a magnificent hall. Two teams of warriors wearing strange full-body armor and holding weapons stood respectfully, forming a passage. At the end of the passage, there was a tall chair, and sitting on it was Jyotanzun, who was dressed in a golden robe. "Master, this is a new fighter. He volunteered to participate in the championship battle." The woman who guided Johnny spoke respectfully and saluted Jyotanzun on the tall chair. "Fighter, bow your head." Seeing Johnny curiously looking at Jyotanzun, the woman scolded, her face showing anger. Being scolded by this woman, Johnny's face turned cold. "Topaz, don't do this, it will scare our honorable fighter." When Johnny looked at Jyotanzun, Jyotanzun slowly spoke, and there was an inexplicable look in his eyes when he looked at Johnny. This look was like a child seeing a favorite toy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Fighter Zone. Tell me, why do you want to participate in the championship battle? Jyotanzun looked at Johnny from head to toe. His eyes were strange. As a universe elder who has existed for a long time, the real Jyotanzun is not as brainless as shown in the movie. From the first time he saw Johnny, Jyotanzun's eyes had a slight fluctuation. From Johnny, Jyotanzun felt something unusual. If it were someone else, no one would be able to be so calm when facing the ruler of Sokka. "I want the championship." Johnny's answer was very concise and clear, which surprised Jyotanzun and Topaz beside him. "Very good, you are very special." different from those other fighters. Jiatanzun liked Johnny more and more, and showed an undisguised smile on his face. Topaz, he will be left to you to arrange, but young man, I want to tell you that once you choose to participate in the championship battle, there will be no room for regret unless you win the championship. Jiatanzun gestured to the woman named Topaz beside him, asking Topaz to take Johnny away. Johnny just smiled at what Jiatanzun said. Go back on your word? Is it possible? After receiving Jiatanzun's order, Johnny was quickly taken away by Topaz. Unlike Jiatanzun, Topaz's attitude towards Johnny was neither hot nor cold, and he even ignored him. He just led the way and didn't say much. Since the other party had a bad face, Johnny didn't want to stick to the cold but with his warm face. He followed behind Topaz and kept walking through the huge building. We're here, kid. Your future activities will be limited to the fighter activity area. As for the rest, you can ask for it yourself. Topaz took Johnny to a heavily guarded area, and then he arranged a guard to be in charge, and he left quickly, following Topaz all the way. Johnny himself was constantly observing. Although this area was allocated to fighters participating in the championship battle, the conditions were quite superior, even luxurious. Whether it was the training venue or the leisure and entertainment area, they were all arranged to perfection. Hey, man, what's your name? After Topaz left with a cold face, the guard in charge of Johnny was very enthusiastic and chatted with Johnny. Johnny was not so cold to this guard. Johnny's character has always been that others respect him, so he will naturally respect others. My name is Rat. The guard here. I will take you to your residence first. From now on, you will be in charge of me. If you have any questions, you can ask me, the guard said with a smile while taking Johnny to his residence. Rat, I really don't understand the situation here and the specific details of the championship battle. Seeing that the guard named Rat was easy to get along with, Johnny also smiled and started to ask. Rat had an expression that he knew you didn't know, and he told Johnny everything he wanted to know without any reservation. After listening to Rat's story, Johnny finally had a detailed understanding of the championship battle. Johnny's current situation: if he wants to enter the championship battle, he needs to start from the initial elimination round, go through rounds of elimination and screening, and finally enter the championship battle, and have the qualification to compete for the King's Championship. According to Rat, these elimination rounds are quite cruel. In order to quickly select qualified contestants, they usually choose to fight in a melee, with dozens or even hundreds of people fighting cruelly in the same arena until there are finally a dozen or even a few people alive, and then they can walk out of the arena. After a period of rest, the second round of elimination will be held. Only fighters who have persisted in more than 10 elimination rounds are eligible to enter the championship challenge. This kind of bloody elimination round is often the most emotional for the audience, second only to the final championship battle. Johnny, you already understand the area where the fighters are active. This is your private room. No one else can enter without your consent. However, you have to be careful of other fighters in this area, especially fighters with marks on their bodies. After some explanation, Johnny was arranged in a separate room by Rat. Before leaving, Rat reminded him, which made Johnny slightly stunned. Rat, what's the mark you mentioned? Johnny was a little confused. I almost forgot to tell you that according to the laws of Sokka, after becoming a fighter, as long as you don't do anything out of line, outsiders are absolutely not allowed to attack the fighter. However, there is no such restriction between fighters. Johnny, as your person in charge, I give you a suggestion. In this area, if you want to live longer, you need to keep a low profile. Those fighters with marks on their bodies are not voluntarily participating in the championship battle. Most of these people have committed serious crimes and are forced to participate in the championship battle. Rat mentioned the fighters with marks, and there was also some fear in his words. Obviously, these people are not good people. Johnny also reacted quickly. If you participate in the championship battle and become the champion, you can get freedom and have supreme power in Sokka. According to Rat, these fighters with marks are actually similar to death row prisoners. Letting them participate in the gladiatorial fight is just for Jiatanzun to add some interest. Rat, I understand. Thank you. Johnny smiled slightly and expressed his gratitude to Rat. "Okay, Johnny, I'll leave first. If you have anything, you can come to the entrance of the fighter area to find me." Rat smiled kindly, said hello, and then left. After Rat left, Johnny closed the room and fell into deep thought. Originally, Johnny thought that if he wanted to continuously improve himself, he could only wait for rounds of eliminations. But now it seems that it doesn't need to be so troublesome. If this area of fighter activities is the same as Rat said, he doesn't have to worry about not having opportunities to fight and improve. Sure enough, the actual situation was the same as Johnny guessed. After he had stayed for only half a day, someone knocked on the door. "Newcomer, open the door, the boss wants to see you." Amidst the continuous knocks on the door, there was an unceremonious call. Hearing this voice, Johnny's face was already showing a smile. He waited for a long time, and the big fish finally took the bait. After opening the door, standing in front of Johnny were several red-skinned men dressed strangely. Each of them was quite strong, over 2 meters tall, with a faint smell of fire on their bodies. Obviously, they were not humans as Johnny knew them. "Newcomer, is the door finally open? Come with us to the fighter area and we will teach you the rules." A red-skinned man stood in front of Johnny. Seeing Johnny, who was much shorter than him, he looked at him with some disdain. "Okay." Johnny's answer made several people slightly stunned, and then they all laughed strangely. Chapter 16. Come to the door. Under the guidance of the other party, Johnny followed a few people and soon came to another area in the fighter area. There were also many fighters living here. They saw Johnny following these red-skinned men, and Johnny looked unfamiliar, so everyone couldn't help whispering, with a look of gloating in their eyes. "Did you see it? Those are the little brothers of Red Hair. This kid is in trouble." Who said it wasn't? The red-haired gang doesn't follow any rules at all. Being targeted by Red Hair, it can only be said that this kid deserves bad luck. Seeing this scene, Johnny would understand that the so-called boss behind these red-skinned men obviously has a strong strength and power in the fighter area. However, this is exactly what he needs. "Go in, the boss is inside." Coming to a room that is much more spacious than Johnny's residence, a red-skinned man pushed Johnny and motioned him to go in. Being pushed, Johnny slightly released the force, causing the other party to stagger. "Is this the attitude you guys showed me when you invited me here?" Johnny spoke slowly, his face calm. "Huh? Ha 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 ha. Boy, you're right. We like to invite you this way. Now that you've left your room, you'd better behave yourself and get in." The red-skinned man who had just pushed Johnny was stunned for a moment. Then he started laughing, his eyes full of ferocity, revealing a threat without disguising it. Johnny didn't care. Instead he smiled and walked in. In this spacious room, there were many people of the same race as the red-skinned man. At first glance there were more than 10 of them, and in the middle, there was a bald man with his upper body naked, revealing explosive muscles. The bald man was much taller than the other red-skinned men, and even when he was sitting, he could look at Johnny at eye level. However, this bald man had only one eye, and the other eye was completely blind, and there were deep scars left by swords in his eye sockets, making him look very violent. "Are you the new guy? Come over here." The bald man smiled wildly when he saw Johnny coming in, drank a full glass of wine, smashed the glass on the table, and then shouted at Johnny, "Did you ask me to come here?" Johnny's calm smile remained unchanged, and he looked completely like a young man, ignoring the dozens of fierce eyes around him. In this room, except for the bald man with a huge body, who made Johnny feel a little threatened, everyone else was completely ignored by Johnny. "Boy, be careful about your attitude when talking to the boss. He is our boss Red Hair. Our boss asked you to come here to give you a chance. If you join us, when we reach the elimination round, the boss will protect you and let you live longer. Now, why don't you thank him quickly?" A big man who brought Johnny here was very unhappy with Johnny's attitude and shouted directly. Johnny smiled slightly. "Protection? These people are recruiting followers everywhere, obviously to strengthen their strength. If you really believe them, I'm afraid that in the elimination round, the first ones to be sacrificed as cannon fodder are these so-called followers." "Red Hair? Where's your hair? Can you be the boss with one eye blind?" Johnny ignored the staring eyes around him and spoke lightly. His words were full of undisguised provocation and ridicule, just to irritate them. "Boy, you're looking for death. Shut up, don't." Johnny's two light words fell into the ears of many red-skinned people, and immediately made everyone explode. For a moment, everyone stood up with a bang, drew their weapons, and surrounded Johnny. The bald man, who was regarded as the boss by everyone, was not so impetuous, but the flash of murderous intent in his eyes was clearly captured by Johnny. "My eye was destroyed in the fight with the Eternal Titan. Although I lost that battle, I survived. Boy, do you understand why I am qualified to be the boss now?" The bald man called Red Hair smiled proudly and told his own record. Hearing Red Hair's words, all the red-skinned men had a bit of awe on their faces. "What is the Eternal Titan?" "It is one of the most powerful races in the universe. The most famous one among them is Thanos, the tyrant who rules the Dark Quadrant. Those who can fight the Eternal Titan and survive do have the capital to be proud." "But, what is the Eternal Titan?" "Being defeated and having one of your eyes destroyed makes you feel good about yourself? You dared to come here to recruit younger brothers. I think you all follow me. When you meet the Eternal Titan, I will help you vent your anger." Johnny spoke disdainfully. Not only did he not attach importance to the Eternal Titan in his words, but there was a flash of contempt in his eyes when he looked at the bald man. This contempt made the Red Hair completely run away. As a powerful being who could fight against the Eternal Titan and survive, what he couldn't accept the most was that others doubted his strength. And the new kid in front of him not only had no respect for him, but also challenged his dignity again and again. The bald man called Red Hair stood up and knocked over the large table in front of him. A strong flame was rising from his body. Under the rage, the face of the red-haired man with only one eye looked even more ferocious and terrifying. "Boy, I admit that you are very courageous. You are also the first guy who dares to provoke me like this, but soon, you will pay a heavy price for your words." The red-haired man's skin was originally red. Under the rage, the flames overflowed, making his whole body blood red. There were strange red lines on his skin with a faint light flowing, which looked very strange. "Remember, Red Hair, will let you taste the fear of death today." After the bald man stood up, he was more than 3 meters tall, completely crushing the other redskins. Under the strong pressure, the opponent often felt fear. However, Johnny's eyes were not afraid, but the flame of fighting spirit was rising. The bald man in front of him made Johnny eager to try. "Ghost," Johnny called out in his heart, and the undead ghost had quietly emerged and stood respectfully behind Johnny. "Get out of the way, I want to kill this kid myself," the red-haired man shouted, and all the brothers in the room scattered, looking at Johnny with a sneer on their faces, as if they had seen Johnny being torn to pieces by the red-haired man and turned into ashes in the flames. "Boy, die," the bald man shouted, and his muscular arms swept over like steel pillars. Chapter 17, Rage. Seeing the redhead rushing towards him, Johnny's eyes flashed with a gleam of brilliance. Although he looked down on him in words, Johnny was very alert in his heart. Facing the redhead's punch, Johnny did not use his ghost to help him for the time being, but instead mobilized all his strength, fully mobilized his strong body, and coordinated with the divine power in his body to raise his arm to block the redhead's explosive sweep. Bang! The redhead's arm and Johnny's toughness made a dull sound, and the scattered airflow spread in all directions. Both of them stepped back a few steps. However, Johnny stabilized his body earlier than the redhead. "Boy, you are good. You can actually block my attack. But you will still die." A trace of surprise flashed across the redhead's fierce one eye, and he was a little surprised at the terrible power that erupted from Johnny's petite body. However, Johnny was also secretly shocked. After swallowing a lot, his physique was strengthened again and again. In the strange space, he absorbed a huge amount of cosmic energy on his own. After this period of continuous precipitation, the cosmic energy accumulated in the cells strengthened his body every moment. However, the opponent's powerful sweep still made Johnny feel pressure. When he touched the opponent's arm, Johnny felt that the opponent's body was not like flesh and blood at all. The hardness was probably even better than steel. Although a little shocked, Johnny did not stop. Without waiting for the red-haired man to attack again, he had already rushed towards the red-haired man. Johnny was very confident in his speed and fighting skills. In a blink of an eye, he had rushed in front of the red-haired man. With his flexible body, he twisted his waist and avoided the red-haired man's huge fist at an incredible angle. Then he kicked the red-haired man in the chest with a sudden kick. With Johnny's full strength, physical strength and the addition of divine power, the force of this kick was definitely 1,000 pounds, which was difficult for even a heavy steel plate to withstand. However, the huge red-haired man endured Johnny's kick, but his body kept retreating, hitting the wall and uttering a muffled groan. "Ah, boy, I'm going to tear you apart." After being kicked, the red-haired man's face turned redder, but he was not much injured. Instead, he became more furious. He stretched out his hands and swung his huge power towards Johnny. What a strong defense! Seeing that the red-haired man was only slightly shaken after enduring his attack, Johnny frowned slightly and was secretly shocked. Facing the more explosive red-haired man, Johnny did not choose to be tough again. He turned his body and moved at a much faster speed than the red-haired man, quickly dodging the attack and constantly looking for the red-haired man's flaws. After a fight, Johnny had already discovered that the ferocious bald man in front of him was not only powerful, but also had considerable defense. If he fought the red-haired man with his physique alone, he might not be able to defeat him in a short time. However, the red-haired man and his group of younger brothers were no less shocked than Johnny. No one expected that a newcomer who looked weak could fight with red hair to such an extent. This seemed too unreal to everyone. The more shocked, the more fierce Red Hair's attack became, and the more powerful it became. However, although Red Hair's strength and defense were terrible, his fighting ability and speed were still far behind Johnny. It was like using a cannon to hit a mosquito. It was useless to have power but no way to hit the opponent, while Johnny was dodging. The exquisite decoration in the room had been almost destroyed by Red Hair's violent attack. Even the solid wall was shattered by Red Hair's punch, and a big hole was shattered, and the whole wall was cracked. Red Hair's group of younger brothers pushed and pushed again, trying to make room and give the battlefield to Johnny and Red Hair. Bang! Seeing the flaw that the red-haired man revealed in his haste, Johnny did not hesitate to trample through the red-haired man's attack. He kicked the ground, and with a powerful force, his body flew into the air. Then, he hit the red-haired man's chin with a hook. Johnny used all his strength in this punch, and the place he attacked was exactly the red-haired man's weak spot. With a heavy punch, the red-haired man's huge body was thrown into the air, hit the ceiling hard, and then fell to the ground. Dizzy, the red-haired man fell to the ground, and after a short dizziness, he burst into a roar, and fell into complete anger. And the red-haired man's momentum, with this sound that was not like a human voice, exploded, far exceeding what it was just now. Bloodthirsty, tyrannical, crazy, the terrible momentum of the red-haired man rushed up, making Johnny's face change slightly. He did not expect that the red-haired man had such ability. The faces of many red-haired brothers who had been watching the game changed at this time. After looking at each other, they began to run outside. "The boss is going berserk. Let's go. MD, this guy is really amazing. He actually made the boss go berserk. He's finished." A group of red-haired brothers seemed to know the reason for the change in the red-haired man's momentum. With a bit of fear in their eyes, they all rushed out while scolding. In a blink of an eye, only the red-haired man who was roaring like a beast and Johnny who was standing there with a cautious look on his face were left in the room. Of course, the ghost behind Johnny who had not moved was invisible to everyone before launching an attack. Just after the red-haired man's group of brothers fled the room, the red-haired man lying on the ground had undergone obvious changes. A strange flame lingered on the red-haired man's body, which instantly raised the temperature in the room. After the flame was born out of thin air, the red-haired man's originally huge body kept changing. When it was fully formed, it was more than 4 meters long. The red-haired man raised his head, and his terrifying single eye turned blood red. It was like a ball of fire burning in his eyes. Apart from the violent killing intent, there was no reason at all. Roar! The huge red head slowly stood up, and a terrifying aura suddenly expanded, completely covering the entire room. Under this terrifying aura, Johnny felt a huge pressure. This guy's strength has increased by at least twice compared to before. Johnny looked alert and thought to himself. Originally, in Johnny's opinion, Although the redhead was considered strong, it would only be a little troublesome to deal with him. But now the redhead who was in a rage brought Johnny a much stronger sense of danger than before. After the body suddenly increased in size, the redhead's scarlet eye stared at Johnny, roared in a low voice, and the palm of the four fingers turned into sharp claws, grabbing towards Johnny. After grabbing, the redhead's speed was much faster than before, almost turning into a fiery phantom, but in a blink of an eye, the strong breath of fire had already descended in front of Johnny. Feeling this terrible attack, Johnny's pupils suddenly shrank, not daring to hold back at all. As his body kept retreating, a ball of fire had already condensed in his palm. He threw it towards the red-haired man's tearing grasp. Boom! The fireball exploded directly under the red-haired man's phantom grasp, and the beautifully decorated room completely collapsed in this huge explosion. Chapter 18. Waiting for an opportunity. With the powerful driving force of the explosion, Johnny retreated quickly before the room collapsed, barely avoiding the large amount of earth and rocks that collapsed. What happened? That's the noise coming from Red Hair. Is Red Hair fighting with someone else? Let's go and have a look. The huge explosion and the sound of collapse could be clearly heard throughout the entire fighter area. Many people reacted and flocked to the area of the explosion, ready to watch a good show. The collapsed room had completely turned into ruins, with a lot of smoke and dust, and the fire that had not been completely extinguished was slowly burning. A group of red-skinned minions of Red Hair had evacuated before Red Hair's rampage, and now they looked at the collapsed room with awe in their eyes. The boss was too fierce after his rage. He just killed a kid, but he actually collapsed our headquarters. Yes, the key is that the boss can't distinguish between friend and foe after his rage. Fortunately, we saw the opportunity quickly, otherwise, shut up. A group of red-skinned brothers scattered around the building where the smoke and dust were constantly dissipating, and talked to each other. But soon, the discussion of several people came to an abrupt end, like a duck with its neck strangled. After the dust dispersed, outside the collapsed ruins, there was a figure standing upright. Although there was a lot of dust on his body, the brilliance in his eyes made all the brothers under the red-haired man fall into incredible shock. How is it possible? This was the first reaction of the red-haired man's group of brothers. No one would have thought that after the building collapsed, Johnny, who provoked the red-haired man, could still be safe and sound, while the red-haired man disappeared, obviously buried in the soil and rocks. Compared to the shock of the red-haired boys, Johnny's eyes fell on the collapsed building, and his eyes were solemn. He had just fought with the red-haired boy, and he knew that the red-haired boy had a strong body defense. The collapsed earth and rocks in a room would only cause him some obstacles at most. Moreover, from the conversation between the red-haired boy and Johnny, he heard words like violent, which made him more certain of his judgment. Sure enough, boom, the smoke and dust had not yet completely dissipated from the ruins, and a large amount of earth and rocks flew, and the huge red-haired boy roared and rushed out. The large amount of earth and rocks splashed, causing considerable damage to the surrounding buildings. Many onlookers, seeing the red-haired boy's appearance, retreated again and again, fearing that they would be affected. The flames on the red-haired boy's body rose again, and the scarlet one eye swept over. Anyone who looked at the red-haired boy's one eye felt an inexplicable burning sensation. The moment he saw Johnny, the red light in the red-haired boy's scarlet one eye exploded, and he let out an extremely angry roar. After the rage, the red-haired man's rationality almost completely disappeared, and he attacked without distinguishing between friend and foe. However, Johnny, who had suffered a small loss for him, instantly became the red-haired man's target. The roar continued, and the red-haired man, with his body surrounded by flames, had already pounced on Johnny, and his speed had already surpassed Johnny. During the pounce, the flames on the red-haired man's body rose even higher. On the palm with 4 fingers, the flames condensed, carrying a powerful burning force. Seeing this scene, Johnny's eyes flashed with a cold color, and the flame power on his body was retracted and transformed into another kind of energy, extreme cold. Squeak! A flash of black flashed between the chest and abdomen of the red-haired man who fell on the air, and accompanied by the sound of tearing silk, The fiery red blood on the red-haired man's chest spurted out. This black flash was the undead ghost who had not made a move and had been waiting for an opportunity to move for a long time. The red-haired man who pounced in midair only had Johnny as his enemy. Moreover, he had no place to gain leverage in midair. Coupled with the suddenness of the ghost's attack, he instantly caused great damage to the red-haired man. Although the red-haired man's defense was strong, he could even withstand Johnny's fists. His defense was even better after he went berserk. However, the attack of the undead ghost was also extremely sharp. When he was still in the god's domain dungeon, the ghost's claws could easily cut through the dungeon's extremely solid cage. After continuously devouring all the way, the ghost's attack power can be imagined. With a roar of severe pain, the red-haired man's body tilted, and his attack on Johnny ended in vain. After rolling to the ground, he covered his chest. Under the burning flames, blood kept spurting out and dripping from the red-haired man's mouth. The ghost's grab tore 5 deep marks on the red-haired man's broad chest flesh, deep enough to see the bone, and the wound was smooth, as if it had been cut by a sharp blade. The ghost after the attack was clearly visible in the eyes of the red-haired man. The red-haired man's one eye looked at the ghost that returned to Yifeng like a zombie, with a murderous intent that soared to the sky and was deeply engraved in his heart. What happened just now? This was the doubt in the hearts of all the spectators. The red-haired man, who was in midair and was about to kill Johnny, had 5 deep scars on his body out of thin air. It was obvious that he was severely injured. The skin and muscles on his chest were completely torn. The dripping blood splashed from the red-haired man's naked chest and fell to the ground. It was actually with flames, like a blooming snow lotus, which raised the temperature of the battlefield a lot. Although the attack was successful and severely injured the red-haired man, the solemnity in Johnny's eyes not only did not decrease, but deepened a bit. The beast that was aroused by the ferocity often becomes more terrifying after being injured. Moreover, after only a short confrontation, the injuries on the red-haired man's body showed a clear trend of recovery. The blood was no longer splashing violently like when he was just injured, and the wounds were constantly repairing. Ghost, do it. Johnny felt cold, and in his heart he gave Ghost the order to cooperate with the attack. To deal with the red-haired man with flames on his body, Johnny made a wise choice and used the ice control skill that he had never used before. With the blessing of the ice control skill, Johnny exuded a chill, resisting the fiery energy of the red-haired man. With a thought, an ice blade condensed entirely by ice slowly extended from his palm, and in a blink of an eye it reached a length of 1 meter. Ice and fire counteract each other, and if you want to cause more damage to the red-haired man, the restraint in attributes is undoubtedly a good choice. Ghost and Johnny cooperated with each other, one on the left and one on the right, and surrounded the red-haired man. The attack power of the ghost's claws had been tested by Red Hair with his body, and the ice blade condensed out of thin air in Johnny's hand. Red Hair also sensed the powerful threat with his beast-like intuition. Facing the attacks of the two, Red Hair had to let go of the palm covering the wound and distract himself from fighting against the two. The ghost's attack was very powerful and he didn't care about his own damage. Upon receiving Johnny's order, he rushed forward fearlessly. He put his most powerful claws together and used his body to directly withstand the red-haired man's punch. While his body was thrown into the air, his claws also left deep blood grooves on the red-haired man's arm before he could pull it back. Chapter 19, A Battle to Establish Authority. The wound on his chest had not yet recovered, and a deep blood groove was opened on his arm again, which made the red-haired man completely furious. His crazy roar could be heard in most of the fighter area, and for a time, it alarmed many powerful beings. However, while causing damage to the red-haired man, the ghost also endured the red-haired man's violent attack. His body was broken and thrown out directly. It was almost completely broken apart. After falling to the ground, his body slowly turned into black dark energy and disappeared into space. The ghost's speed was fast, even compared with Johnny. However, in front of the rampaging red-haired man, it was still a little slower, which led to the fact that if it wanted to achieve results, it could only use the method of killing 1,000 enemies and injuring 800 of itself. Fortunately, the ghost's attack had achieved its goal. The red-haired man was distracted by the injury of one arm, and Johnny's attack came just in time. The sharp and cold ice blade, with Johnny's strength, broke through the red-haired man's defense at the moment when he went crazy. The target of the attack was the red-haired man's only one eye. This attack condensed all of Johnny's strength and combat wisdom. The sharp blade, condensed by his level 2 ice control ability, not only perfectly resisted the flames on the red-haired man's body, but also exuded a chill, which had a certain slowing effect on the red-haired man's body. When this attack came, the red-haired man had no time to dodge. Even if his defense was strong, his eyes were one of the most fatal weaknesses in his body. The cold and sharp blade penetrated the red-haired man's single eye without any hindrance, deeply inserted, and at least half a foot was sunk. However, just when Johnny was about to insert this fatal blow directly into the red-haired man's brain and kill the powerful enemy in front of him, all the flames on the red-haired man's body, facing a desperate situation, instantly burst out. Boom! The blazing flames burning on the red-haired man's body burst and shattered, sweeping wildly in all directions. Johnny was closest to the red-haired man and was the first to bear the brunt of it. The power of this explosion was no less than that of the fireball that Johnny controlled with all his strength. For a time, Johnny had no way to complete the subsequent attacks. His body was pushed back by the explosion. The power of the flame explosion is not limited to the instantaneous driving force, but also the blazing high temperature. Even though Johnny exudes extreme chill, he is burned to ashes under the raging flames. The power of the explosion caused Johnny's body to flip and he retreated 7 or 8 meters before falling to the ground. His clothes had already had many holes due to the flame explosion and continuous burning, and his shirt was almost a rag. The chill continued to be released, and the burning flames were quickly extinguished by Johnny, but this set of clothes was considered useless. Johnny didn't care, and tore off the rag-like shirt, revealing his muscular upper body. After his body continued to change, Johnny's figure was also close to perfection. Although each muscle was not explosive, it was quite clear, and the streamlined lines made him look full of masculinity. If such a figure were placed on Earth, I don't know how many girls would be crazy about it. Johnny panted a little. This battle was the most difficult one since he crossed over. Redhead was stronger than any opponent Johnny had ever faced. If he had not cooperated with the ghost and used all his means, he would not have been able to easily defeat him. At this moment, Redhead, who was blind and severely injured, desperately pulled out the ice blade inserted in his eye socket from his face. Under the burning of the strong flame, the ice blade was not infused with Johnny's energy and soon evaporated completely. Although Redhead looked extremely ferocious at this moment, he was no longer a threat to Johnny. Although he roared in pain and anger, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Redhead was already at the end of his strength. He couldn't do anything to Johnny in his violent state, let alone now that he was blind. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated and killed by Johnny. The fighter zone is going to change. This was the thought in the minds of many onlookers. The surprise in the eyes of Redhead's group of brothers gradually turned into fear when Redhead's eyes were disabled, especially the red-skinned man who brought Johnny here. His body was trembling uncontrollably. Redhead was their biggest support, and now Redhead was going to die. Their ending was self-evident. However, Johnny was too lazy to look at the group of terrified younger brothers. 2 ice blades condensed again on his hands, and the body of the undead ghost was recondensed under a wave of black dark energy that was difficult for ordinary people to see. This time, Johnny didn't need to command at all, and the ghost quickly floated towards the redhead. At the same time, Johnny also grasped the ice blade tightly and rushed towards the blind redhead under the eyes of everyone's awe and fear. There was no suspense in the next battle. In the whole area, the roar of Redhead's pain, anger and despair became weaker and weaker, and the originally blazing flames on his body gradually disappeared as wounds appeared one after another. Such a big commotion was noticed by the entire fighter area. As the guards of the fighter area, they quickly responded and a team of guards rushed to the scene. When the pair of guards came all the way, they had already known from the shocked discussions of the crowd that the 2 people fighting were a newcomer and a powerful redhead. Upon hearing the news, Rat, who was among the guards, changed his expression and sped up. Johnny was his responsibility, and he had a good impression of him. Now he heard that Johnny had offended the red-haired man who was one of the most famous fighters in the entire fighter zone. Rat felt a little bitter, and he sped up just to save Johnny's life before he was killed by the red-haired man. However, when Rat rushed to the battlefield between Johnny and the red-haired man, he froze. All he saw was Johnny, who stood proudly in the ruins with his strong upper body naked. Following the horrified and frightened eyes of all the onlookers, Rat saw a broken skeleton in the ruins not far behind Johnny. Above the skeleton, there was an obvious smell of fire, which was rapidly dissipating in a short time. Ding! Kill the red-haired man. According to the host's request, the devouring energy will be converted into devouring points. A total of 90 devouring points will be obtained. Beside the broken skeleton of the red-haired man, the ghost contentedly turned into black phantom energy and dissipated. In Johnny's mind, the system's prompt sounded, 90 points? It's worth the energy I wasted. Hearing this number, Johnny's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a bit of satisfaction. Counting the devouring points that he had not used before, his accumulated devouring points have reached 120 points, enough to upgrade a skill. Chapter 20 Attention. When Johnny ordered the ghost to devour the red-haired man, he had considered the red-haired man's violent ability that greatly increased his combat power, but after some thought, Johnny chose to give up. In the violent state, although the red-haired man's strength doubled, his rationality was obviously suppressed. He didn't want to become a beast without any reason during the battle. At this time, the satisfied smile on Johnny's face was undoubtedly the devil's bloodthirsty grin in the eyes of all the spectators, which made the audience who witnessed the terrible scene after the red-haired man was killed sweat on their backs. Rat, why are you here? Seeing Rat, Johnny showed a kind smile. This time, facing Johnny, Rat's eyes completely changed. At the beginning, when Topaz brought Johnny to the fighter area, he didn't pay much attention to Johnny, which made Rat think that Johnny was just a fighter who came to make up the numbers. He couldn't bear it and took care of Johnny a little. But now, the red-haired man who was ranked among the best in the entire fighter zone had become a broken skeleton, and the fire and blood were burning dimly. Even though Rat couldn't believe it, he had to admit that Johnny was probably a very strong and abnormal existence. Johnny, this is. Looking at the broken body of the red-haired man, Rat could hardly speak clearly. Although he had seen many disputes between fighters as Asgard in the fighter zone, this bloody one was the first time. Rat, there shouldn't be any problem with the fight between fighters, right? This guy wanted to make trouble for me, and he attacked me first. If I killed him, it wouldn't be against the rules, right? Johnny smiled slightly and asked Rat, who looked a little pale. No, there won't be any problem, Johnny. I really didn't expect you to be so strong. Rat stood there for a long time, and finally came back to his senses, collected his mind, and spoke sincerely. Johnny glanced at the red-haired brothers calmly, and then took Rat away and went to the area where he lived. The red-haired brothers, who were already terrified, were almost frightened to the ground when Johnny's eyes swept over them. After Johnny and Rat left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. In the fighter area, fighting is allowed, and no one will care even if there are casualties. As a fighter, you face a bloody and cruel battle. If you can't survive, you can only blame yourself for being too weak. The red-haired brothers originally thought that Johnny, a bloody and brutal strong man who didn't even let go of the red-haired corpse, would naturally not let them go. However, they didn't expect that Johnny didn't seem to have much interest in them. What these people didn't know was that Johnny really looked down on them. Even if he killed them all and devoured them, he probably wouldn't even have 1/5 of the devouring points to kill the red-haired one. Although Johnny had a clear distinction between gratitude and resentment, he was not a bloodthirsty person. Without the protection of red hair, the fate of these people could be imagined, and he did not need to waste so much energy. In the room assigned to Johnny, Rat's face was still shocked. Johnny, you scared me. When I first heard that you had offended Red Hair's gang, I was ready to collect your body, but I didn't expect. Rat took the drink handed to him by Johnny and spoke slowly. After Johnny showed his strong strength, Rat was no longer relaxed and casual when facing Johnny, and became a lot more restrained. Rat, we are friends. Don't be so polite. What does my strength have to do with whether we are friends? Johnny had a smile on his face. He really regarded the guard rat as a friend. When he did not show his strength, Rat did not look down on him at all, and was very enthusiastic towards him, which made Johnny feel the warmth of friendship that he had not felt for a long time. Okay, Johnny, to be honest, when I met you, I just wanted you to live a comfortable life and live as long as possible in the cruel competition. But now it seems that your strength is among the best even in the fighter zone, and can even be compared with the Eternal Titan and the Toxic Man. I am afraid that after the news of your defeat of Red Hair spread today, the Grand Master will pay more attention to you. Johnny's words warmed Rat's heart, and he gradually relaxed and said with a smile, Rat, I don't know the most powerful people in the fighter zone. Can you tell me about them? Johnny smiled slightly. After fighting with Red Hair, Johnny already understood that the water of the championship battle was deeper than he thought. During this period of time, Johnny's strength increased rapidly, and coupled with the heaven-defying swallowing system, he couldn't help but swell up a little. However, after the battle with Red Hair, the slight swell in Johnny's heart had disappeared. Okay, then I'll tell you, but I don't know a lot of information very well. Rat nodded and told Johnny everything he knew. A special area somewhere in the fighter zone. Master Titan, Red Hair was killed by a newcomer who just arrived in the fighter zone today. A fighter dressed as a scavenger said respectfully to the Eternal Titan who was more than twice as tall as him. To survive in the fighter zone, the weak can only choose to rely on the strong to get protection. The scavenger in front of him was lucky to become the Eternal Titan's subordinate. He usually appeared in the fighter zone and could get many envious looks from the weak. That waste whose eye I destroyed? It's dead. It's nothing strange. Did he provoke the insect mother, or the poisonous man? After receiving the report from his subordinates, the Eternal Titan did not show much surprise on his face, and asked coldly, neither. Red Hair was killed by a newcomer who just arrived in the fighter zone. After a slight hesitation, the Eternal Titan's subordinate said respectfully to the Eternal Titan. Hearing this, the Eternal Titan, who had not much expression before, showed a bit of surprise for the first time. He was very clear about the strength of the red-haired man. He had a violent special ability. In the entire fighter zone, there were only a few people who could kill him, which made him a little afraid. But now, the red-haired man died at the hands of a newcomer who had just entered the fighter zone, which aroused the interest of the Eternal Titan. Interesting, it seems. There is another person in the fighter zone. The Eternal Titan's eyes flashed with excitement, and his low murmur slowly echoed, with a chilling coldness. Chapter 2100 Elimination Tournament. At the same time, Topaz also stood respectfully in front of Jayatanzun, reporting Johnny's incredible record. Good. From the first time I saw him, I knew he was definitely an excellent fighter. After listening to Topaz's report, Jayatanzun showed a strange excitement on his face. But unfortunately, the fight between Red Hair and Johnny should not be in the fighter area, but in the arena. Topaz, arrange for Johnny to participate in the elimination match as soon as possible. I can't wait. After a while of excitement, Jayatanzun ordered Topaz. Johnny, who had just returned to his residence, soon received a notice to participate in the first elimination match. This notice was conveyed by Rat. Johnny, this is a 100-person elimination match, which is the largest elimination. You only need to persist for 1 hour, or there are only 30 members left in the arena, and the elimination match will be terminated. Johnny dealt with Red Hair, which made Rat more confident in Johnny, and said to Johnny, I understand. Johnny was also looking forward to this first elimination match. Before receiving the notice from Jayatanzun, he had spent 100 devouring points to upgrade his fire control skill by LV1 to LV3, which greatly improved his control over fire. After a simple preparation, Johnny entered the preparation area and began to choose the equipment and weapons he needed. This preparation area is adjacent to the fighter area. As long as you pass through the preparation area, you can directly reach the arena. At this time, in the preparation area, you can already hear the noise of countless spectators in the arena. After arriving at the preparation area, Johnny saw many participating fighters. These fighters came from different planets and races, and their looks and reminders were also very different, but without exception, they all had a sturdy aura. Whether they volunteered to participate in the fight or were exiled to Sokka and became contestants in the championship battle, there were almost no weak ones. Seeing Johnny with a calm face, many fierce-looking contestants showed a bit of disdain in their eyes. Although the battle between Johnny and Red Hair had been spread in the fighter area, there were not many people who actually witnessed the battle. Therefore, seeing Johnny's harmless appearance, many people's eyes flashed with murderous light, and they were already secretly planning to kill Johnny. This was an elimination match. If one person fell down, their chances of surviving would increase greatly, and Johnny was undoubtedly the one who should lie on the ground in everyone's mind. However, Johnny didn't care too much about it. As for choosing weapons, Johnny simply strolled around the preparation area to see if there were any weapons suitable for him. In this area, there are almost all kinds of strange weapons. Of course, in order to ensure the fairness of the battle, all of them are cold weapons. In addition to the shelves for weapons, there are also shelves for armor and protective gear, which are filled with all kinds of strange protective gear, suitable for almost all races. But after this stroll, Johnny was a little disappointed. Whether it was weapons or protective gear, in Johnny's opinion, they all seemed too rough. With Johnny's current physique, wearing protective gear in the conventional sense would not only have little effect, but would even affect Johnny's battle. As for weapons, when he appeared, Johnny picked up a spear and a huge round shield made of unknown metal. The spear was more than 2 meters long, and it was much taller than Johnny when it stood up. The huge round shield was a full-body shield that could completely block Johnny's body behind it. Boy, if you are afraid of death, don't come to participate in the championship battle. Do you think such a shield can keep you alive? It can only show your stupidity and cowardice. A fighter wearing leather armor and holding a long knife in his hand looked at Johnny when he passed by him. After seeing that Johnny did not have the mark of an exile, he could not help but sneered. Johnny just glanced at the other party and did not have any intention of speaking. He chose the spear shield only because he devoured many God's Domain guards in the God's Domain dungeon. The fighting ability of these God's Domain warriors included a lot of fighting skills of contradictory attacks. In the grand fighting arena, hundreds of thousands of spectators gathered, from different galaxies in the universe, and even star fields, all for this championship knockout match. In fact, every battle of the championship battle is almost always full, with countless enthusiastic spectators. Countless searchlights swayed with the rhythmic music, and finally gathered above the arena, and a huge shining figure appeared in front of the audience. Haha. Dear audience, it's a beautiful night, a wonderful performance. Are you happy? This figure is Jiaotanzun, who has changed into a gorgeous dress. At this time, Jiaotanzun had a smile on his face, through the projected shadow, looking at the excited faces of countless spectators. His vanity burst. In his almost infinite life, only fighting can make Jiaotanzun no longer so empty. The championship battle is his only source of happiness. Everyone, please give another round of warm applause to the fighters who are about to die in the first elimination match today. You will have a worthwhile trip, just like me. As Jiaotanzun's inflammatory voice, the cheers in the arena became louder and louder. Amid the increasingly intense music, many doors on the bottom floor of the arena opened with a bang, and a fighter walked out of each door. Roar! All the fighters appeared in the arena, raising their weapons or hammering their chests, making huge roars. Among all the fighters who entered the arena, there was an exception. This person, with a spear in one hand and a round shield in the other, stood calmly, looking at the crazy roaring fighters and cheering audiences in the arena, and seemed very calm. Jiaotanzun's eyes were on him intentionally or unintentionally, with a hint of intrigue in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, now, everyone should know the rules of the 100-man elimination tournament. The battle will end after 1 hour, or when there are only 30 fighters left in the arena. Now I declare that the match begins. Jiaotanzun's excited voice echoed. After announcing the start of the match, the huge light and shadow disappeared, and all the lights gathered on the arena. Fight, fight! Rounds of salutes rang out, and the audience's voices made people's blood boil. In the arena where hundreds of people were present, There were already hot-blooded fighters who were infected by the atmosphere, roaring and attacking the opponent closest to them. But in an instant, blood bloomed brilliantly in the arena. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Unbelievable. In such an atmosphere, once the melee begins, it is difficult to stop. It was the first time for Johnny to face such a battle, but he was not very nervous. He remained calm and looked around, taking in the situation of the entire battlefield. However, just because Johnny did not take action did not mean that others would not cause trouble for him. "Boy, I told you before the battle, die!" A roar sounded, and the fighter who had mocked Johnny before shouted and rushed towards Johnny with the long knife. In the huge duel arena, there were countless spectators in the stands. "Captain, look over there, it's that kid." A somewhat surprised voice sounded from somewhere in the stands. It was one of the guards who was responsible for guarding the city border before. Sitting next to him was the captain whose nose was broken by Johnny's punch. Hearing the voice of his men, the captain's eyes quickly fell on Johnny in the field, with undisguised hatred in the captain's eyes. "This guy is finally on the field. I've waited so many games just to see how he dies." The captain of the guard still had a large bruise on his nose after treatment. Seeing Johnny's figure, his face became furious and ferocious, and his eyes were full of hatred. "Captain, don't worry. This kid who dares to provoke you will definitely not survive a challenge match. He is dead." The people next to the captain of the guard all spoke in flattery. However, is this really the case? The sturdy man with a long knife rushed to Johnny, smiled grimly, and chopped the long knife in his hand towards Johnny mercilessly. "Die!" the sturdy man shouted, with a bit of madness in his eyes. Johnny's eyes flashed coldly at this sturdy man who provoked him twice. Puff! A sound of flesh and blood being pierced rang out, and a sad and beautiful blood flower bloomed from the chest of the sturdy man who attacked Johnny. The sharp nails of the undead ghost had pierced through his back, completely crushing his heart, and then pierced out of his chest. Ugh! Ugh! The big man's long knife didn't have time to chop Johnny. His eyes bulged out. He lowered his head in disbelief, looking at the sharp nails protruding from his chest. Then his body tilted and he slowly fell to the ground. "You are the one who wanted to die. Don't blame me." After the strong man fell, all his breath disappeared instantly. It was obvious that he was dead. Johnny only uttered a cold voice. "Ghost, I leave it to you." Johnny would naturally not let go of the trophy. He gave an order to Ghost in his heart, carrying a heavy round shield and spear, and slowly walked towards the center of the field. How is it possible? The fall of a fighter made the audience in the stands more enthusiastic, but there were a few people among the countless audiences with great astonishment on their faces. These people were the Saka guards who had some conflicts with Johnny. When Johnny appeared, the captain of the guard focused all his attention on Johnny, waiting to see how Johnny died. However, this ending was totally beyond their expectations. In their eyes, just when Johnny was about to be cut in half by his opponent, the opponent suddenly died. The actions of the undead ghosts were usually only seen by the attacked, so in the eyes of the audience, Johnny was just a fighter who got lucky. "Captain, don't worry, this guy just got lucky." In the elimination round, luck is not the only way to win. Seeing the gloomy face of the guard captain, a guard wanted to speak to please him, but he stopped abruptly halfway through his words. The eyes of the guard were also widened in disbelief. Next to Johnny, who was holding a spear in one hand and a round shield in the other, another fighter fell down. It was exactly the same as before, without any signs. At the moment of attacking Johnny, a ball of blood burst out of his chest, and then he died. Compared with the bloody melee in the central battlefield of the 100-Man War, this scene did not stir up much waves. In addition to the few guards who had been paying attention to Johnny, there was also Jyotanzun. How did he do it? Jyotanzun looked puzzled. Even he didn't know how Johnny did it. Jyotanzun was surrounded by a group of people, all of whom were his guests. Everyone knew who Jyotanzun was talking about, but everyone had the same doubts as Jiao. No one saw how Johnny's opponent died. As the battle progressed, 5 fighters who tried to attack Johnny had died. All of them were killed by a strange blow. A ball of blood burst out of their bodies and died cleanly. From beginning to end, Johnny didn't really make a move. At this time, the crazy fighters discovered Johnny's abnormality, and no one bothered Johnny for a while. In the chaotic arena, a strange scene appeared. There was no opponent around Johnny, as if this elimination match had nothing to do with him. "Ghost, you don't have to guard me anymore, let's eat." Seeing this scene, Johnny was also happy to be free and ordered the ghost to start devouring the killed fighters. Thus, in the eyes of all the audience who were watching Johnny, there appeared a strange scene that they would never forget. The bodies of the fighters killed by Johnny seemed to be torn by some invisible beasts, and the flesh and blood splashed and were swallowed up bit by bit. In just a moment, several bodies turned into broken bones. Even the audience, who were extremely enthusiastic about fighting, felt inexplicably strange when they saw the bloody scene in the arena. Fear comes from the unknown, and the bodies of these fighters who were dealt with by Johnny were torn apart and disappeared bit by bit, which was the invisible fear. These fighters who were killed had almost no abilities that Johnny could appreciate. After being swallowed by the ghost, they were all transformed into swallowing points and stored by Johnny. Boom. With the loud bell ringing to end the battle, the elimination match was also announced to be over, and the huge light and shadow of Jiao were projected on the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, the elimination match has ended. Let us cheer for all the victorious fighters. After stopping the fight, all the fighters roared excitedly. This bell represents glory and represents that they are one step closer to the championship battle. Throughout the entire arena, almost all the surviving fighters were covered in blood, and many of them had wounds of varying sizes. Only Johnny was the only special one in the arena. At the edge of the arena, gates opened one after another, and the surviving fighters roared with excitement and left through the gates. The cheers of countless spectators were getting louder and louder. Chapter 23 Horrible Record. Devouring 5 ordinary fighters only gave me 20 devouring points. It seems that if I want to improve as soon as possible, I can't hold back anymore. After returning to his resting area, Johnny sorted himself out and was somewhat dissatisfied with his gains this time. In order to improve faster and complete the system's tasks, Johnny has made a decision that he will start to plunder devouring points crazily from the next game. However, Johnny is not a bloodthirsty person. His main target is those fighters with marks on their bodies. Originally, according to the rules of the championship battle, after a knockout match, there can be a maximum of 1 month of rest time, but after only 3 days, Johnny took the initiative to ask to participate in the next knockout match. Upon hearing this news, Jiao agreed immediately. He didn't see many players who took the initiative to ask to participate. 3 days passed in a flash, and it was another hot knockout match with a full house. This time, Johnny did not hold back like the previous game. After Jiao announced the start, he took the initiative to find fighters with marks on their bodies as opponents, and cooperated with the ghost to quickly kill them all the way. Killing these criminals exiled to Saka, Johnny had almost no psychological burden, just like killing chickens and ducks in a slaughterhouse. In Johnny's view, these people were all chickens and ducks that provided him with strength. After one game, Johnny killed a terrifying 20 opponents. It was because of this game that Johnny was recognized by all the audience. Who is this person? Why haven't I heard of him before? It's so exciting. Did you see it? In this game, he killed at least 20 people, and one of them survived 6 consecutive elimination games. I really want to meet that fighter. Did you see that the enemies he killed seemed to have been devoured by something and turned into a pile of bones? Amid the cheers of the audience, many people were also discussing enthusiastically. This game lasted only less than 10 minutes before the elimination number was reached and the game was stopped. After one game, Johnny accumulated a full 110 devouring points, upgraded his fire control skill again to level 4, and his control of fire leaped again. Another 3 days passed, and when Johnny stood in the arena again, the passion of all the audience was completely ignited, and the whole audience was cheering. In this fight, Johnny's opponent was obviously better than the previous two, which made Johnny more excited. His sharp eyes swept through the fighters with marks on their bodies. All the fighters who were swept by Johnny's eyes felt a little chilly. Johnny's reputation rose with his record of killing more than 20 fighters in a knockout match. In the minds of the audience, this is the synonym of a strong man, and in the eyes of other fighters, it is undoubtedly a nightmare. The fighters who knew Johnny's identity quickly moved away from Johnny after the fight began, and were unwilling to confront him head-on. However, the avoidance of others could not stop Johnny. "It's you." A fighter with a mark on his body was found by Johnny. This fighter was a relatively powerful fighter in Johnny's perception, and killing such an existence could often bring Johnny more devouring points. "Boy, don't think I'm afraid of you." Provoked by Johnny, this fighter's face was ferocious, holding a metal rod in his hand, on which there was still blood that had not dried, looking very cruel. However, after a short confrontation, this fighter fell straight down, with fear and unwillingness in his eyes. Johnny was expressionless and rushed towards the next target. When the knockout bell rang, Johnny killed a total of 30 fighters with marks. Originally, such a record would hardly appear in the knockout round, but with Johnny's wanton slaughter, at the end, all the fighters stopped fighting one after another, and watched Johnny looking for one target after another in fear, fearing that the god of death would choose them in the next second, which allowed Johnny to eliminate 30 people alone. After letting the ghost devour the bodies of 30 people, Johnny obtained 210 devouring points and left the arena with satisfaction. After 2 elimination matches, Johnny became a well-known figure in the entire fighter area and even in the entire Saka city. People on the streets and alleys would talk about Johnny's terrible strength and achievements. This newcomer is too terrible. His fighting power is probably not much weaker than the Eternal Titan and the Worm Queen, isn't it? But even the Worm Queen doesn't like killing as much as he does. In every elimination match, he almost took half of the heads by himself. Although he is powerful, I don't think we need to worry so much. Why? Don't you find a pattern? This person always chooses opponents with marks on their bodies. As long as others don't take the initiative to provoke him, he won't take action. In the fighter area, many fighters who are familiar with each other gathered in groups of 3 or 5 to talk about Johnny. In the luxurious palace of Jyotanzun, many people were also discussing the rising new king of the arena. "Master, the fighter Johnny that you are following has reached the standard for participating in the championship competition. Do you want to let him skip the elimination round and enter the championship competition?" Topaz, who had a bad face towards Johnny at the beginning, now stood respectfully in front of Jyotanzun with a complicated expression on his face. "No need. Arrange 1 or 2 powerful elite fighters to participate in the next elimination round. This way, it will be more exciting," Jyotanzun said with a smile on his face. Hearing Jyotanzun's words, Topaz was slightly stunned, and soon understood what Jyotanzun meant. In addition to the fighters in the fighter area, the members participating in the championship battle also include many strong people trained by Jyotanzun alone. These strong people have strength comparable to the first-class fighters in the fighter area. Not only are their combat abilities quite outstanding, but they also have some powerful skills. In special circumstances, in order to increase the viewing value of the game, Jyotanzun will arrange such strong people to join from time to time. The addition of these strong people is an exciting bloody feast for the audience, but for the participating fighters, it often means the abyss of despair. "Master, why don't we arrange for Flash Wolf to participate? Flash Wolf should be able to put some pressure on that fighter named Johnny." After a brief thought, Topaz mentioned a candidate. When he mentioned Flash Wolf, there was a bit of awe in Topaz's eyes. "Just do whatever you want." Chapter 24 Encountering a Strong Enemy. 3 days later, Johnny participated in the 4th elimination match. With the terrible record of the previous 3 matches, when Johnny appeared in the arena, countless audiences' fiery and excited eyes all fell on him. "Devourer! Devourer!" Johnny clearly heard such excited shouts from countless audiences. "Devourer? Are you talking about me? This name is quite appropriate." Johnny smiled, and his heart was also a little hot when he thought of the upcoming killing feast. Just like before, Johnny would habitually look around before the battle to find a suitable target. However, just as Johnny's eyes swept over all the participating fighters one by one, a cold and bloodthirsty look also fell on Johnny. This look came from a short figure wrapped in a black cloak, but it made Johnny feel the crisis. Seeing Johnny looking at him, the short figure covered by the cloak made a gesture of wiping his neck to Johnny, and blood flashed in his strange eyes. "Are you here to find me?" Johnny was not afraid of being locked onto by the opponent. On the contrary, he felt excited. This was a desire for battle. Only such a powerful opponent would be meaningful to devour. With the sound of the elimination match starting, the usual melee unfolded, and Johnny and the short figure did not move. Their eyes met in the air, exuding a fierce momentum. The short figure let out a strange long howl, suddenly jumped high, and pounced on Johnny. Johnny's eyes were focused, and he had been locking on to the opponent's figure. He did not have any thoughts of despising the figure because of his shortness. Seeing the opponent rushing towards him, a ball of fire had instantly formed in Johnny's hand. He threw it suddenly, and the fireball rushed towards the opponent's pounced figure. Encountering an opponent who made Johnny feel in danger, Johnny did not dare to be careless, and used his skills for the first time in the elimination match. However, Johnny's surefire attack missed. The short figure faced the blazing fireball launched by Johnny. Even though his body had nowhere to gain support in the air, he was able to twist in the air and narrowly avoided the fireball. At the moment when the short figure and the fireball passed by, Johnny used the bright firelight to see the other person's face that had been hidden under the cloak. This was a face covered with thick black hair, and a few sharp teeth exposed at the corners of the mouth, which reminded Johnny of a familiar word, werewolf. At this moment, the werewolf had avoided the fireball from high in the sky and pounced in front of Johnny. The sharp claws turned into a dark phantom, stretched out from the cloak, and came towards Johnny's throat. Unable to dodge in time, Johnny could only raise his arm and sweep it across, trying to block the opponent's attack. And Johnny's other hand had been clenched into a fist, carrying terrible power and burning flames, piercing the opponent's heart. The grab towards Johnny's throat was blocked by Johnny's arm. The werewolf felt the power of Johnny's other punch and retreated at an unusually fast speed. A burning pain came from his arm. Johnny looked and saw that there were several blood grooves. The wounds were sharp and smooth, as if they were cut by a sharp blade. Fortunately, Johnny's physique has been strengthened several times and has been continuously strengthened to the present. A large amount of strange energy has been deposited in every cell of his body. This is only a slight injury. Moreover, the injury was quickly healed under the automatic repair of cells. Otherwise, if it were an ordinary person, the werewolf's terrible grab would shatter even hard rocks. The pain and stimulation of his arm made Johnny's body more excited, and he had completely entered a tense fighting state. The stronger the opponent, the more he could feel the pleasure of fighting. With the waving of his arms, flames rose up and completely covered Johnny's two arms. This move was developed by Johnny after he fought with Red Hair. The flames covering his body can not only enhance the attack power of close combat, but also improve the defense ability to a certain extent. Under the burning flames, it emits a blazing high temperature, but it has no effect on Johnny himself. He used his ability. Did you see that? His arms are all in flames. It's so exciting. On the highest stand, Jaotanzun has been paying attention to Johnny. Seeing Johnny injured and the flames on his body, Jaotanzun was excited like a child, while Johnny was mobilizing the huge flame energy. The short werewolf did not rush to attack, but kept observing the opponent in front of him, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Lightning Wolf was very confident about the attack of his claws. Even a steel plate would find it difficult to resist his claws. However, when his claws tore the skin and flesh of the opponent's arm, there was a huge sense of obstruction, leaving only an insignificant wound on the opponent's arm. Human, no matter what abilities you have, you can only become the prey of my Flash Wolf. A deep and magnetic voice sounded from the wide cloak. This voice, in the chaotic dual field, was clearly transmitted to Johnny's ears. The plain words, revealing strong confidence, made Johnny smile. However, this smile, no matter how you look at it, Seems so cold. You talk a lot of nonsense. Johnny hardly cares about the other party's identity. In Johnny's eyes, this is a large wave of devouring points. Under the rising flames, Johnny has already rushed towards the Flash Wolf with a blazing breath. With the full burst of physical strength, Johnny's speed is also quite amazing. However, in an instant, the distance of more than 10 meters between the two was completely crossed by Johnny, and the blazing breath instantly approached the Flash Wolf. The flames on Johnny's arm suddenly rouse, and his palm turned into a blade, slashing down with blazing power. Bang! Flash Wolf's black cape exploded, ignited by the blazing heat, and all the cloth strips in the sky were burning and falling. However, Flash Wolf, who was locked by Johnny, had disappeared from Johnny's sight. What a terrible speed! Johnny's pupils shrank, and his body retreated instantly. Then he stood in place, half crouched, and kept looking for the figure of Flash Wolf. In Johnny's perception, the moment his attack fell, Flash Wolf actually avoided it directly at an incredible speed and then disappeared in front of Johnny. This speed was something Johnny had never seen before. When Johnny was concentrating on searching for the figure of Flash Wolf in the arena, he could vaguely see a faint black phantom, constantly shuttling in the arena. Ah! A shrill scream sounded, and a fighter who had just defeated his opponent had already covered his neck, and blood gushed out of his throat like a fountain. Chapter 25 War of Attrition. After the black phantom passed by, it soon appeared in front of Johnny, staring at Johnny with brutal eyes, with a provocative meaning. After the black cloak was torn, Johnny could see the true face of Flash Wolf. The Flash Wolf, with thick hair and hunched body, was only a little over 1 meter tall. There was scarlet warm blood dripping on his sharp claws, and Flash Wolf seemed to enjoy it very much, licking the blood on his claws with his tongue. I haven't tasted the taste of blood for too long. You are too weak and can't keep up with my speed. Prepare to feel the embrace of death. After the cloak was torn, Flash Wolf also showed his most cruel side, and the brutality in his eyes seemed to want to devour Johnny completely. Johnny's eyes were solemn. The opponent's speed was indeed ridiculously fast, and he could only catch a phantom. This kind of enemy who excels in speed is the most terrifying. The flames rose, spreading from Johnny's arms all the way, and soon completely burned Johnny's clothes, revealing Johnny's sturdy body. In the rising flames, Johnny felt not scorching heat, but a kind of boiling. Inspired by the battle with red hair, this was the first time Johnny used his fire control ability in this way, achieving a similar effect of violence. Come on! Feeling the roar of blood and energy in his body, Johnny's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. With a loud shout, he rushed towards Flash Wolf. The blazing breath attracted countless people's attention in the arena. Many fighters who were fighting saw Johnny bathing in fire. Their faces changed, and they avoided him one after another, fearing that this killing god would find them. Facing Johnny's surging fighting spirit, even Flash Wolf felt a sense of pressure. Werewolves who naturally like darkness have an instinctive fear of fire. At the moment Johnny rushed over, Flash Wolf had turned into a phantom and avoided a fireball launched by Johnny. Seeing Flash Wolf turned into a phantom, fireballs kept appearing in Johnny's hands. Fireballs, one after another, all went towards the phantom transformed by Flash Wolf, and the whole arena was roaring continuously. As the two figures chased, Johnny seemed to have turned into a fireball jet, with fireballs constantly surging and condensing in his hands, tirelessly shooting at the werewolf. With his powerful inhuman speed, Flash Wolf was able to easily dodge the fireballs launched by Johnny at the beginning, but after a long time, his maximum speed became a considerable burden. Maintaining the maximum speed all the time is a considerable consumption for Flash Wolf. On the other hand, after Johnny blew up the entire battlefield, not only did he not show any signs of hardship on his face, but he became more and more excited, and the power of his fireballs was constantly increasing. This was the most exciting battle Johnny had fought since he came to Sokka. Facing his crazy bombing, the opponent did not fight back at all, and became a moving target, allowing Johnny to release as much as he wanted. Under such a bombardment, the energy in every cell of Johnny's body was fully mobilized, and too much cosmic energy was deposited in these cells. After a release, Johnny felt extremely happy. In such a fierce battle, the passion of countless spectators was ignited. Devourer, devourer, kill him, kill him. Without knowing Johnny's name, the audience still called Johnny the Devourer, but now it seems that this name is no longer suitable for Johnny, who is surrounded by flames. In the arena, all the melees stopped, leaving only Johnny and Flash Wolf's performance. I don't believe that your energy is endless. Flash Wolf kept his speed and mental concentration, constantly dodging and gnashing his teeth. Flash Wolf's fighting style is all about speed. Compared with Flash Wolf's terrible speed, his attack is much weaker, and the flames on Johnny are getting higher and higher, so he can't find a suitable opportunity to kill with one blow. It is for this reason that Flash Wolf has been wandering around, ready to wait until Johnny's power is exhausted, and then he can easily deal with it. But who knows, Johnny will fight more and more fiercely, and the fire attack he launched will be even more powerful. After this tug of war continued for a while, Flash Wolf's heart was already extremely anxious. His physical strength, which had been maintained at a rapid speed for a moment, was almost exhausted, while the opponent's fireball did not show any exhaustion at all. It was precisely because of his anxiety that Flash Wolf's mind was in a trance for a moment, and before he could react, a fireball exploded on the ground in front of him. Boom! The powerful explosion force made Flash Wolf scream in pain, and his body flew up. When he fell to the ground, a lot of his hair was still burning. This completely exhausted Flash Wolf's physical strength, causing his chest to rise and fall sharply. After falling to the ground, he could only roll over to extinguish the flames on his body. Johnny was at his most violent at this time, but he remained absolutely calm in his heart. Seeing Flash Wolf being injured, Johnny's momentum changed, and all the flames dissipated instantly. Several ice cones were launched at the same time, and the sharp cold light flashed a deadly luster under the sunlight. The remaining flame energy on his body had not been completely extinguished, and Flash Wolf felt severe pain. Puff puff, several sharp blades pierced the flesh, and Johnny's condensed ice spears had penetrated the limbs of Flash Wolf, causing Flash Wolf to howl and lose the ability to move. His second ability. This really surprised me. In the stands, Jiaotanzun cheered excitedly, just like the hundreds of thousands of spectators in the field. Master, we spent a lot of effort to cultivate Flash Wolf. Do you want to stop the game? Topaz's eyes were still filled with horror. He couldn't believe that Flash Wolf would be defeated by Johnny in this way. Topaz, have you forgotten the rules of the championship match? Hearing Topaz's words, Jiaotanzun's eyes flashed with disgust and said something. Feeling the change in Jiaotanzun's tone, Topaz's heart was shocked, and a panic appeared on his face. He quickly lowered his head and dared not speak again. It was her idea to let Flash Wolf participate in the elimination against Johnny. Topaz had an inexplicable hostility towards Johnny being respected by Jiaotanzun, and that was why she targeted Johnny everywhere. However, Jiaotanzun's attitude sounded a warning to Topaz, and his back was almost covered with cold sweat. As the ruler of Sokka, Jiaotanzun usually appeared to be very kind, but Topaz, who had followed Jiaotanzun for many years, knew that behind Jiaotanzun's kindness was a heart without any emotion. As the elders of the universe, they had almost infinite life, and in their eyes, everyone was an ant. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.